What up though, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined by Ryan McCluskey, and this evening apparently we're the Blues Brothers. We're both sporting blue here, but this is the college football podcast. ThunderHerds are go. I'm proud of that title and I am sticking by it. So Blood Week has come early to college football. Ryan, I mean, what on earth do you start to talk about this week? Head coaches have started to fall. The Sun Belt went out and tried to beat absolutely everybody. The FCS did beat everybody, it felt like, in a lot of fixtures there. And even the SEC had its authority challenged this week and suffered some casualties. This was just quite a crazy weekend of college football.
Yeah, and it's come so soon. The first head coach firing could have happened a week or two ago. Like I say, it's happened now. It's very decisive because we'll go into it, but a large amount of money has come into play that may not have had to. So it's certainly a shock that they've not waited or that they've not done it sooner. But yeah, like I say, FCS had a great week. Sun Belt, against the spread across all other conferences, is really holding its own, having a great season. They're on top of a few conferences already. And yeah, I feel like some teams have finally been found out. Some teams that had sun shone out their arse last season and just scraped by teams have fallen flat. And in a big way. Absolutely.
The ranked teams are falling. I know it doesn't really mean much in the first few weeks, the rankings, but I mean some of these top 10 ranking teams who have been absolutely devastated by some of these results here. So, yeah, there is a lot to talk about today. We will be, of course, reviewing week 2. Usually we review the pick watch results, but there are that many upsets this week that we're going to go around the list of upsets because they're a lot more fun to talk about. Then we're going to recap the pick watch results, maybe chat about them a little bit, and then we're going to deep dive into week 3 because the college football just keeps getting thrown at you now, just keeps coming and coming and coming like Charles Harris when he's rushing off the edge. But just quickly before we do, I shall do some housekeeping. Roar of the Lions UK Discord, if you want to come get involved with that, it is a good laugh. We had a lot of people, new people join over the weekend. A lot of Lions chat going on there. I mean, a lot of chat about everything really. So if you want to come and chat with us a bit more in person, then just let us know and we shall send you the Discord link. The Roar of the Lions UK main podcast, this Monday just gone, we had a very heated discussion about the Philadelphia Eagles game. Some of us were happy, some of us were unhappy, but made for some good viewing. So go and check that out if you haven't already. It is a lot of good fun. Obviously, don't forget to like and sub, Twitch, YouTube, all that. On YouTube, actually, we're up to about 543 subs now. So if we could break that 550 mark and head up to 600, that would be absolutely great. Of course, we appreciate every single one of you who is subbed, who gives us support. This community that we're building here really keeps us going. We really do appreciate that. Obviously, the same with Twitch as well. If you're a Twitch affiliate, if you've got that free Amazon Prime sub to use, maybe think about throwing it as our way. If you do like what we do, it costs you nothing and costs Jeff Bezos a tiny, infinite fraction. Minute fraction of what his worth is, but we still get it, so that would be great. And Lions Nation Unite, we are a part of this Herman Moore's app that he has for Detroit Lions fans. All the content is made by YouTube creators, Detroit Lions fans. It's content by the fans, for the fans. It's an absolutely great little app, and we also do some roundtables and that on YouTube you can find occasionally. If you want to hit up the last one, Ryan was actually on yesterday with Micro Mike and Mark Oram. That was fun to watch as well, so go check that out as well. So yeah, that is all the housekeeping done. Let's say hello to anyone who's in the chat tonight. Ken Stauder is in the YouTube chat. He said hi, what's up? What's up to you, sir? Thank you for joining us as always. I can see there's a few of you knocking around Twitch and YouTube as well. So if you have any questions, you want to say anything, then just feel free. We'll shout you all out during the show. Right, as we did last week, we're going to... Det Fanman's in the building as well. He says, hey, how are you doing? We're doing well, thanks, Det Fanman. Hope you are as well, or I was until I saw certain Detroit Lions injury reports today. But we're not going to talk about the Detroit Lions. We're going to talk about college football, because at the minute that makes me really happy. So, hey to you, anyhow, and thank you for joining. So last week, we started off Taking a little look at the uniform scene around college football, obviously you can find some cracking unis around there. Ryan in particular loves to give them the fashion shakedown on there, and I know he's been keeping a close eye on what the teams have been doing this week, and I'm going to hand it over to him now, and he's going to tell us some of the studs and duds from the college uniform world this week.
Yep. I'm going to start with my helmet of the week, and that will go to the BYU Cougars, who rocked their all royal blue uniforms, but they had a nice tint to a chrome helmet. They looked good, they played good, and they just looked great. Like I say, one of those, the first Power Range uniform of the season. They looked fantastic and all blue, but that chrome lid just really tipped it off nicely. My runner-up in the best uniform is actually New Mexico. They rocked an all red for maybe the first time. It's very rare. All red uniform with a shiny red helmet, red socks, everything, and they looked good. Like I say, it was a nice look for them. Just one bold, solid colour that I don't think it's something they usually wear. I think there's a new helmet design as well, and they looked really good and gave spirit performance. But everyone was blown away by this. The Louisville Cardinals, they decided to go all patriotic. They had all white uniforms, but then they had red, white, and blue like tinted numbers, and like a chrome red, white, and blue cardinal on a white helmet. Just lovely, so clean. The kit man did a great wash. I don't know if he used a lot of Tide or something. They came out sparkling, and yeah, they looked good, played well, and they really had some nice uniforms there.
Yeah, we're going to be hearing a little bit about Louisville later because they're going to be coming across the radar.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie though, I don't like the new Michigan State neon helmet. Like I say, they've been rocking neon last few years and they just don't pull it off. It just don't look right. So they've added this new neon tint. Like I say, there's going to be some more puke and sick green at some point this year, I'm sure. But just leave it be. Just revamp it. Do something different. Stop trying to rehash that whole thing.
Was there sort of anyone who offended the censors this week with the uniforms, or for the most part were they sort of just like meh, they are what they are?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Rice sported their space ones this week. I know we talked about them last week, but Rice sported the space ones, and they did look clean.
Yeah, they did. Like I say, it's a shame that all their effort went into uniforms and wasn't put anywhere else, unfortunately. But if you're going to struggle, you might as well at least look good doing it, I suppose.
Exactly. Look good, play bad, but at least at the end of the day, like you say, you're looking good on there. I'm not so sure about Louisville's. There's one this week though. I just put it in the chat not so long ago. This vampire look they've gone for with the red and black. I'm not sure that's kind of the way to go. Like I told Ash, you best prepare your holy water and garlic cloves for that because I'm not sure. I don't know if they'll be in the top next week, but yeah, intrigue. I'll see what they're like on the day and reserve judgment till then. Right, so that is everything in terms of the uniform watch this week. We're going to go through a little bit of news first before we dive into the games. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, we've had our first head coaching casualty this year, and we are barely through week 2. I think it took till week 3, the end of week 3 last year, for the first head coach to go. They've gone even earlier this time, and of course, this was a guy who you saw stood on the sidelines of the Aviva Stadium little under 2 weeks ago. Ryan, the Nebraska Cornhuskers head coach Scott Frost, the season which promised so much. We buttered them all the way up on the week 0 preview pod thinking, yeah, this could be their year. Casey Thompson's there, the running back room looks good, they got O'Shawn Mattis on the defensive line, they've really invested in it. But they're 3 games into the season because they started week 0 and they've already decided, you know what, actually, we made a mistake here. They lost this weekend to Georgia Southern, a game we will talk about later, meaning Nebraska are 1-2 after week 0's horrendous capitulation to Northwestern, and they decided that they'd seen enough and it was time for him to go. And the interesting thing about this, as Ryan mentioned, it cost $15 million to buy him out of his contract, which is a hefty hit for Nebraska to pay. However, if they had waited till the mere early time of October the 1st, which I think with a bye involved means he only had 2 more games there, They could have cut him for 7.5 million as his buyout went down, but they decided, no, we're going to take the monetary hit early, and we need to make a change now. I mean, this, I guess, was hardly surprising, Ryan, but the timing of it is like, it's interesting to say the least.
See, a lot of fans in the stadium probably will have been happy to leave him in Dublin. Last year was not good. Like I said, Scott Frost came into this season in trouble. He could not afford a bad start. He could have been fine after the Northwestern game. Some fans wanted it. He got the benefit of the doubt. Like I say, there's talent on this Nebraska side. Like I say, they brought in a good quarterback. Now, I would not have fired him until I could save $7.5 million, because that's a damn lot of money. Like I said, what can someone come in, or what can an interim head coach do in 2 weeks that's worth not saving $7.5 million for me? There's nothing. Even if they win 1 or 2 games, they could lose both the games, and then you sacked him for nothing. I mean, it's got to be a statement of intent, but it doesn't mean things are going to improve. So I would have waited until like 1 minute past midnight on the 1st of October, and I'd have rung him up in the middle of his night and said, "You're fired." Like I said, I would have fired him in his sleep. I'd have sent Freddy Krueger to kill him in his sleep and fire him. But that's a lot of money for a program that doesn't do very well and probably don't earn a lot in revenue from like TV stuff. They can't be earning a big portion of the pie in that division. So, yeah, interesting. It turned out to be a very expensive misfire hiring him. But whoever gets him now, I've heard the rumours of who's going to get their job. I don't think it's an attractive job, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was listening to a podcast this morning, the college pod I listened to get some more information for this. He put a link up for a guy who was chatting about this, and he said the breadth of problems at Nebraska ran deep. Apparently, like, the assistant coaches, the position coaches, they're going to the AD, telling him about stuff that Scott Frost is not doing. He's not making recruiting calls. He's arriving late every single day to practice. His heart's not in it, was basically the whole theme of this. And they were basically praying for him to go. And they were, when you're going over your head coach's head to the AD as a positional coach or as an assistant coach, then there's something really wrong with you there. And I mean, we talked about this team at the start of the season. It's very talented. It's really talented. They've brought in some major transfers this year. They've finally got a decent quarterback. They've got a good running back room. They've really invested in that defensive line. The defense is pretty good. And, 2 weeks in, they've already lost to a G5 school in Northwestern. It's just like, something ain't clicking. It's not. I don't think it's a talent issue. I think it's a head coach issue here, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the right person could turn this round. Now, there's strong rumours Matt Campbell of Iowa State is interested, and he's fed up and outgrown it there, and they could have an interest. But if you look at the odds, they're talking about like Deion Sanders. He is not leaving Jackson State for Nebraska. Like, they love him at Jackson State. He's balling out, like you say. He's bringing in the HBCU kids. He is not going to leave for Nebraska. He is getting success. Like, it's not even that big a jump, I'd say. Like, it's a big jump, like, product and program-wise, but he ain't going to be any more successful in the short term, and it's a risk of his career. So I don't know who's going to get it, but yeah, there's names floating around there that they're going to make a hire probably quickly. I think they're going to try to get someone mid-season, but I think they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to steal Matt Campbell from Iowa State mid-season. It'd cost them a fortune.
Well, that's the thing. You kind of thought you wait 2 weeks, save the 7.5 million on getting rid of Frost, and then use that 7.5 million to buy out Campbell. I don't know how much his buyout is, but you can at least put a significant chunk of that money, or all of it, and a bit more towards buying him out and getting him. Like you say, now they've incurred the cost of getting rid of him at full price, and then it's. And then they're going to have to pay for Campbell, possibly. So I'm not sure. My man, the man of steel, Kurt Steele, is in the building on YouTube. He says, "What up, though? What up to you, good sir? I hope you are very well. I hope to be able to chat to you again soon. I've just been working a lot of Fridays recently, but hopefully I'll get back on Free For All Friday very soon." Ken says, "Wow, that's a big cost for the early change. Who gets the hot spot now? Who's quick answer, right? Who's the college football coach on the hot spot now? I'm going to say Will Healy down at Charlotte. I think he's in a lot of trouble the way they're playing this year. They're on the third string quarterback. The offense is terrible. I think it's his 5th year now, and they are regressing mightily. I think he's in a lot of big danger. But who's the one who's most in trouble for you now?
Oh, that is a good question.
I mean, is Jimbo in trouble at Texas A&M? Or I mean, you gotta.
I mean, I'd say not, because their 23 and 24 recruiting classes are so good. He's a good recruiter. I think that might just save his ass. But yeah, the season's going down the pan because they didn't dress it. They didn't dress quarterback. Haynes King for me. He ain't the guy. I'd say Virginia and Virginia Tech. I'd say their head coaches, not even that old, but they look in bad shape.
And tell you what, Western Virginia as well. We'll talk about them later, but I think they've lost 2 on the bounce now. And we actually want to talk about that game later, so maybe we'll discuss that when we get to it. But yeah, those are a few who might be in danger at the minute. I don't think we've seen the end of this. There could be some as early as next week. Ken goes, yikes, don't work for Ryan. I'm guessing that's to the whole Freddy Krueger thing. No, don't work for Ryan. Yeah, if you sacked, it would be in a weird and horrible way, so yeah, maybe not. He also says, what if it was Bama calling, I guess, for Deion Sanders? I guess if Deion Sanders gets a major Power 5 offer, then that's fine, but Nebraska ain't major Power 5, are they? So, if Alabama come calling, then most people would probably listen to that. Yeah, I would say so. Death Fan Man says, hilarious that Jackson State is as attractive as Nebraska, just outrageous how far the corn have fallen. It is, isn't it? They are, like you say, not an attractive prospect no more. They're trying to transition over from the triple option to become a real team, but a passing side more and more, and it just seems to be a process that's taking a very long time. And yeah, I don't. We'll see what happens with them. Right, just to get through a couple of other bits of news, a couple of bits of injury news here regarding the draft. So Arkansas safety Jalen Catalon, he is out for the season with a shoulder injury which requires surgery. This marks the 2nd season in a row that he suffered a bad season-ending injury. He was meant to be in the top tier of draft-eligible safeties this season, and you will figure this is going to affect his stock going forward. Not sure what his eligibility is like, but maybe he can get another year in there.
He's a redshirt junior, I think, so I think he'll have 1 more year. But I don't know if I'd risk it. If he's had 2 bad injuries, I think I'd probably just declare. Just focus on the combine now.
Yeah, more than likely, especially with the shoulder as well. Just try and get that up and running and take your chances there. And I guess this is going to figure into the first match we're going to do, but Notre Dame quarterback Tyler Bootner is also out for the season with a high shoulder sprain, making a very bad season for Notre Dame even worse. I'm going to save that chat for a minute because that's the first one we're going to go into. Also, Quinn Ewers, the Texas Longhorns quarterback, and we'll talk about him later. He's out, I believe, for 6 to 8 weeks with an injury he sustained against Alabama at the weekend. And I have been trying to find out information about Bijan Robinson as well. I think he picked up a knock in that game. He's getting an MRI on a shoulder injury, so that could be huge for this draft. He's running back 1 by a country mile at the minute, and we'll talk about the game later, but he had a good showing against one of the best teams in the country and probably shot his stock through the roof. The last thing he needs now is a bad injury. Yeah,
he is in most people's running back 1 by consensus. He's probably the only one that can really make inroads into the end of the first round. And to lose Quinn Ewers to that clavicle sprain, which can be bad. I say the collarbone is always a bad injury for a quarterback because they don't heal well. They're okay with Hudson Card coming in because he came in and played pretty well. He's a pretty good backup. But the backup running back, I don't know who it is, but he ain't on Bijan Robinson's level. If Bijan's hurt, Texas's season is over again. And I feel for him because it's just so much talent there. There's so much chance for them to try steal the SEC, but things just never go their way, unfortunately.
No. I think the one thing they did show about this, though, is that, maybe the jump to the SEC will be manageable for them. A lot of people were saying it might not be, but it's bad for Quinn because, of course, who's coming next year? Archer's on his way. You've got Hudson Card, who's very, very talented, like you've said. An injury could just knock him out the depth chart, and he might have to move again. If Hudson wins that starting role, stays there, and then Archie arrives next spring, then he's got a hell of a job to get his starting job back. And the bad thing is he looked damn good. He looked so good, made some really impressive throws. I feel really, really sorry for him. So hopefully he's back and he can make inroads this season. But we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll let you know about BJ Robinson next week. Micro Mike is in the building. Mike, hope you're doing well. Always a pleasure to have you in, good sir. He says, Ant-Man and Ryan, what's up? We are all good, thank you very much. Right, let's move it on to the games. And, I mean, there were so many upsets this week. I've got 12 down here, which classify as probably major to nearly major upsets. And there's a couple, like some teams scraped by the skin of their chinny chin away from upsets this week as well. I mean, just the underdogs decided they were going to go hell for leather this week. And we're going to start, we've named the show after them. The show is called ThunderHerds Our Go. Of course, we're going to talk about the Marshall Thundering Herd first, and we're going to talk about their game against Notre Dame. And I'm just going to lay a few ground things here, and then I'm going to let Ryan go at this because I know he's ready. I know he's prepped for this moment, and I'm not even going to try and get him in the way of him on this one. So, as I say, Marshall, Notre Dame. Probably the biggest upset of all this weekend. So don't forget, Marshall are in the Sun Belt. The Fighting Irish, they are an FBS independent, but they're a very good FBS independent side. Trying to get a $70 million a year deal for their TV deals at the minute. That's how big a deal they are, or at least they think they are there. But Marshall walked into their stadium and beat them. Marshall 26, Notre Dame 21. And the worst part about this for Notre Dame, this wasn't even an undeserved win for Marshall. So like last week, I told you about the post-game win expectancy, where Old Dominion had a 1% post-game win expectancy against Virginia Tech. That's the chances of them winning the game depending on how they played during the game. It was 1% for Old Dominion, so only once in 100 times would they have won that game. Marshall's post-game win expectancy this week was 98%. Not only did they beat Notre Dame, they deserved to beat Notre Dame. This was not a fluke. And they did it without their... When I did the preseason, the preview for the Sun Belt, we talked about Marshall. Their outstanding prospect last year was the running back, Rasheen Ali. He had 1,400 yards on the ground last season. He's not even with the team. Unfortunately, he's away dealing with personal issues at the minute. I'm not sure what they are, but send all my well wishes out to him. Hope he gets well soon. They did it without him. Marshall ran the ball hard. They went to over 5 yards per carry. The running back, Kalen Laybourne, who stepped in for Ali, he had 163 yards and a touchdown off 31 carries. The quarterback, Henry Columbi, very efficient, 16 of 21 for 145 yards and a touchdown. Defensively, a 55% stop rate. They made critical saves all over the field. They had a havoc rate of 9%, 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, but most critically, 3 interceptions. One of them was a pick six that sealed the game, and they got a fumble recovery as well, which just kept the Notre Dame offense at bay. The turnover look for the game was 11 points in favour of Marshall, so when all the turnovers were combined together, Marshall won that by 11 points, which basically won them the game. As for Notre Dame, their offense lost them this game. They averaged just 5.32 yards per play, which is 32nd percentile. 4% explosive play rate against the G5 school. That ain't good. And despite having a full 10-yard advantage in starting field position over Marshall, they didn't convert any drives, and they averaged less yards per play. They had 7 scoring opportunities, which are drives in the opposition 40. They averaged just 3 points per drive. So every time they got into the Marshall 40, they only averaged a field goal. Marshall, by contrast, were averaging 5 points every time they got a scoring opportunity. Defensively, They had a 14% havoc rate. They had 12 tackles for loss. They had 3 sacks, whilst they kept Marshall to 27% on third down success rate. The trouble was Marshall didn't really get to third down very often. The run game just kept churning out the yards and the sticks kept moving. Marshall deserved this win, and fair play to them. They played hard. They played well. But go on, Rye. I'll let you go into Notre Dame.
See, this was coming last year, wasn't it? How many times did they get away with it last year? And their quarterback room was better last year. At least Jack Cohen was more trusted. Tyler Bootner got the benefit of the doubt against Ohio State. It was like a big stage and he just couldn't live up to it. But came into Marshall, shit the bed, didn't he? Like you say, he's not ready. I don't know if he'll ever be ready. So to compound it with an season-ending injury, but he didn't play good enough anyway. He'd have got benched at some point anyway for Drew Pine. I don't put this on Marcus Freeman. I don't put anything on him. He didn't inherit a very good team. The best players left for the draft, the recruits that are coming in that are 4 and 5 stars aren't for a year or two. They did not go to the portal and get a running back. There's no run game because Karen Williams is gone. Like I said, that is why their offense is stagnant, because they cannot move the ball on the ground. The defense, incredibly porous. Like I said, they brought in a big-time playmaker in Brandon Joseph. Looks invisible. Like he's not able to make any difference because teams are running the ball on them. So he's not forcing them to throw deep. Just a compound of miseries and things. Like I said, I don't know where this team goes from here. Their offense, the record at the end of the season could be as bad as they want it to be, because right now they're in total free fall. It's damage limitation time. They've got to stop the rot. They've got to pick up a few wins, but the season's a write-off. Like I say, any chance of finishing in the top 10, 15 of the AP poll at the end of the year is already gone because they look terrible. Like I said, coordinators, play calling offense stank. Like I said, there was no effort to move the ball or any explosive plays, but then they didn't have a guy that you don't trust to move the ball down the field.
No.
Competition looked like a rabbit in headlights, Bootner. When he comes back next year, if he comes back next year, might have lost his starting gig. He might be in the portal at this time next year because it's too big for him, too much too soon. So I don't know if they've seen the last game of him in the Fighting Irish already.
Yeah, and they say you can't really be, enthused about the backup either. I mean, I think pretty much the first thing Drew Pine did when he came on the field when Bootner went out was throw a pick. And, it's just like, Jesus, it's so bad. But, as bad as they were, it's still, even on a bad day, you still have to perform very well to go to Notre Dame and win. And you could tell that Marshall were up for this. Charles Huff, the coach, we talked about him in the preview when we did the G5 previews for the Sun Belt. He's a former running back and offensive line coach, and you could tell that this offensive line and this running back room was incredibly well coached. Like I say, they're missing their star running back from last year, 1,400 yards out, personal issues. They've got another guy who comes in, gets them 140 yards on the ground, moving it at over 5 yards per carry. The offensive line is tough, it's strong, creates running lanes for him. I mean, Charles Huff's done a really good job there. I mean, I guess they've got to try and get on a little bit of a roll now after this, but, Marshall looked really good, in fairness, as bad as Notre Dame looked. I was really impressed with Marshall.
Yeah, they capitalised. They knew Notre Dame were reeling. They knew they were backed into a corner and they were struggling, and they couldn't have played them at a better time. Like I said, all they just did, like I said, was execute. They didn't ask Colombi to do too much. Minimal passes, but he protected the ball. No turnovers. Yep. And in the ground game, just chewed them up. And like I said, they just control clock as well. Until the final strike of the nail in the coffin of the pick six. Kept the offense off the field of Notre Dame, even though it was basically anemic anyway. They didn't even see the field for most of the game, so could have done it much better. This is their bowl game. Whatever happened to Marshall's season, they can say that they took down Notre Dame, and it's a highlight win. And it could be the catalyst for something to make a run at a Sun Belt title. This kind of thing can springboard your year.
Oh God, yeah. It gives you all sorts of legitimacy, this does, taking down who were a ranked team. I think Notre Dame were 9th still this week. They're not ranked this week, but that's a huge scalp for them. So I'm going to be interested to see how they follow that up now, because it's easy to just lose to a scrub side after you do this, because you're on a real big high. So hopefully Charles Huff keeps them going. Depp Batman in the chat says go Marshall. Ken Stouder says Marshall looked tough, but the Notre Dame QB looked like he had a bad day. Yes, he did. Quite frankly, as Ryan's already said, he's just looks like a deer in headlights, and I don't think he's ready to take on the pressure of leading that offense. And it doesn't help when you have a running back either. When you don't have a running back, like Ryan says, no Kyron Williams, the running back game just looked poor. They looked poor, but fair play to Marshall. Congratulations, great win. Really, really happy for you. Right, let's move this on to another one of the biggest upsets this week. And a lot of these upsets happened on the road as well. This is what I was looking at today. A lot of road upsets here, not home ones where you can kind of maybe think, oh, maybe not so much of an upset. A lot of road games where teams won this week. Appalachian State travelling to number 6 ranked Texas A&M. Don't forget, Appalachian State just conceded 63 points against UNC the week before this. They got bombarded into submission by Drake May and co. there, and then they waltz in to Texas, the heartland of the Aggies. They walk into their stadium, beat them 17 points to 14, and Texas only scores 7 offensive points because one of the touchdowns was a kick return. So how the hell do you give up 63 to UNC and then give up 7 to Texas A&M? Well, let's see. This game is defined by one amazing stat line. The time of possession for this game: 41 minutes and 29 seconds to 18 minutes and 17 seconds. Now, I know we have hindsight here, but I put the question down. Who do you think has won that battle? Texas A&M, the SEC power playing at home against a G5 opponent. They've spent $30 million in NIL deals to assemble one of the best recruiting classes in the nation this year. I think they might have the number 1 class, actually. Or Appalachian State, the plucky underdog Sunbelt team who are on the road against SEC opposition on the back of having a 60-burger dropped on them by UNC. If I just asked you that question and you had no idea, you would assume that Texas had 41 minutes of possession there. But no, Appalachian State on the road held the ball for over 41 minutes in this game. Texas had the ball for just a shade over 18. So just to put this into perspective, this game, Appalachian State ran 82 offensive plays. Texas A&M ran 38. Less than half of the offensive plays that App State ran. Texas put up just 186 yards of offense. They were 2 of 8 on 3rd downs, made no attempts to go for it on 4th down. They fumbled 3 times and lost the ball twice. And as I say, half the points came from special teams. It was Devin A-Chain took a return to the house. Only 2 guys rushed the football, and one of them was the quarterback. This is a very predictable and out-of-date offense, and defensively, just as bad. They allowed 9 of 20 conversions on 3rd down, which is just a shade under 50%. It's still a lot. They allowed 3 of 5 on 4th downs, so over half of the 4th downs they allowed Appalachian State to convert. And it's not like Appalachian State were really that good either on offense. They averaged just 3.77 yards per play, but when you have more than double the offensive snaps of the other team, it don't really matter how bad you are. Those yards add up, and they matter. Apart from the 3rd down success rate of 42% for Appalachian State, which is 50th percentile, every other metric on both offense was graded at 35th percentile or less. This was a defensive slugfest in every metric, really. The Appalachian defense, they stepped up. They kept Texas off the field. They had a 61% stop rate, a 38% defensive run stuff rate, a 21% havoc rate with 8 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. That's just on 38 plays, so in less than 1 in every 4 plays, they had a tackle for loss or a sack. And shout out to Cameron Peoples, the Appalachian State running back, 112 yards on 19 carries at 6 yards per carry. He kept the chains moving all day, kept Appalachian State on the field, kept the drives going, wore the clock down, and just like Marshall, Appalachian State had an 89% post-game win expectancy, so this again, not a fluke win, they earned it. I mean, what the hell's going on here, Ryan?
I was actually lucky to watch the entire second half, and it was brilliant. Like I say, and Cameron Peoples was actually hurt. He missed a good portion of that second half. He kept coming in and out, but he was injured. He was limping, but he kept pounding the rock. He saw them over the line because Chase Bryce couldn't get much of a passing game going, even though he hung in there, did well. I don't get A&M. Like, Haynes King was struggling so bad, and Max Johnson was on the sideline with his helmet on. Did he come into the game once? No. At no point did they think, do you know what, nothing's working, let's try our other quarterback, who was also an experienced starter. He was poor on Jimbo Fisher. Like I say, he did not manage this game as well. Like I say, other than that, say Devin Atchinay, who was really good. Like I say, he took that kickoff to the house. It was I thought it was going to be a momentum changer, but no, they hung in there. That was really the only thing they did all day. It was painful to watch at times, like you say, to have so much ball and for it to still come right to the death. They failed many times to put them to bed, so it was a struggle. But like I said, I was confident in App State. I thought they could. There was like some crazy stuff, like they're on like their second like top 7 winning like 20 something years or something. Like I said, they've had some crazy times. Like I said, when they beat, it was Miami, wasn't it? The win against Miami was like in 2007. Yeah. And since then they've lost in like double overtime twice to like top 8 teams. So this win has been coming, and I'm so proud. Like I said, App State are one of them teams that neutrals just love. If anyone doesn't know them or don't watch them, they're such a great neutral team to watch because they're very balanced. They can be exciting, but they're also super tough and gritty. And they went in there, and the fans were staggered. The A&M fans were just in pieces. They could not believe what they saw.
I loved the App State fans. There were quite a few App State fans there, and I loved seeing their reaction when it was done. I mean, the mental fortitude to come back from losing that UNC game when you had chances to win that. You know, Chase Bryce missed 2 very open passes for conversions which would have won that UNC game for them. You know, that must have been so disappointing to come off the back of that. To go to the home of the Aggies, defeat them on their own pitch while keeping the ball for over 40 minutes shows a level of mental fortitude in that side. So yeah, I was really, really happy for them. I delighted for them to go out and get that win there, and let's see what they can do next week, because
they're ranked now as well.
Yeah,
they slipped in at 25th, which is nice.
And they're in the pick'em again this week. You know, I mean, I think they're going to be a pick'em fixture at the minute this year because they've just got all sorts of great fixtures going on. So yeah, this isn't the last you'll hear of App State today. We'll talk about them a little bit more later on, but I mean, A&M are just quickly finish on A&M. I mean, they're in free fall. You saw the TikTok of the player, you know, driving dangerously around that car park afterwards, just going, man, it seems like there's such a lack of indiscipline there at the minute. I mean, that defense didn't seem interested in getting off the field. It was like they were just allowing drives to happen, and there was just no urgency to it. I mean, you mentioned that, you know, the recruiting classes are strong and whatnot might save him, but to a neutral on the outside, you know, it feels stagnant as hell there, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, A&M are in no position to compete at all in that conference. Like I say, they've not been around, not been relevant for some time. And like I say, it might be one day, but I think this will be the first major QB change as well. You can't, Haynes King can't, unless you play Minnow next week.
He's not
Haynes King can't start next week. If you're playing anyone that's above average, I'd say give Max Johnson a chance.
Oh no, Tyler Van Dyke's on his way next week. So they're playing the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes have put up like 100 points in the first 2 games. So you're going to need to score. I know they put up some against some scrub FCS team first week, but you can't put up more than 14. 7, actually. I'm going to call it 7. You got 7 points against App State at home. You know, something's got to change. So, again, congratulations to Appalachian State. Terrific victory, well earned, and, you know, enjoy it. Enjoy it. The next one. Now, this is one that has really not been talked about, but this was an absolute shocker of a result. This might be the biggest shock of the entire week. So, the Weber State Wildcats travelling to the home of the Mountain West Kings, Utah State. Expect that to be an easy win for Utah State. You would think. They've not started off the season very well. They struggled against UConn. They got absolutely obliterated by Alabama, but you're still thinking they should do pretty well this week. Weber State on the road, 35, Utah State 7. Not only did they beat the Kings of the Mountain West, they absolutely obliterated them. So, Weber State, for any who don't know about them, they play in the Big Sky Conference in the FCS. They have not won a game against FBS opposition since 1993. They have not beaten Utah State since 1978. You know, just for reference, that's when John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John were in the British charts with all their duets from the Grease soundtrack. That's how long back you're going for that. And they're playing against the Utah State team that has not lost to FCS opposition since the year 2000. These are the records that got broken in these games. They waltzed into Maverick Field, they whooped the defending Mountain West champions on their own ground, and it's not even close. And Utah State, this is a big worry for them. Now, like I say, they barely put away UConn week 1. They got blown out and shut out by Alabama. That was 55-0, and now they've got the worst defeat of the century planted on them. This was a turnover fest. So Utah State QBs Logan Bonner and Cooper Lakers combined for 16 of 40 on their passing, 157 yards and 4 interceptions. No touchdowns thrown. Bonner had 3. One was right before the half in the red zone when they could have taken the lead. Another one of them was returned for a pick 6. He was booed mercilessly all game, and there was an active cheer when he got hooked for his backup Ligas. This is a guy who just led them to their first ever Mountain West championship last season. 3 games in, the fans have already turned on him. Weber State QB Bronson Barron, he threw 3 picks as well, although he at least did have 2 touchdown throws. Weber State outgained Utah State 401 total yards of offense to 283 for Utah State. Weber State had 22 first downs, only 18 for Utah. Time of possession, Weber State dominated again. It was 36 minutes to 23 minutes. And again, on the road. Average yards per play, Weber State 5.2, Utah State 3.8. Third down conversions, 10 of 19 for Weber State. Utah State were 2 of 15. 2 of 15 on third downs. Weber State converted on all 5 of its trips to the red zone, while Utah State's only points came on a kick return by Terrell Vaughan. That's right, they didn't score an offensive touchdown all game. Wildcats running back Josh Davis rushed for 97 yards on 18 carries with a touchdown. Aggies running back, Utah State's running back Calvin Tyler, just 64 yards on the same number of carries. So he got outperformed by his FCS, opposite. Utah's defense did not muster a single sack in the game, which for a team who plays in such a physical league in the Mountain West, when you can't get a sack on an FCS opposition, you've got to be worried. Weber State's offense was, the way they did it, it was clearly visible. They were 30% pass, 70% run split. The top 2 receivers, Ty McPherson, had 2 touchdowns and 89 yards. Jacob Sharp, 87 yards. The yards per catch for these 2 guys was 29.7 and 21.8. So Weber State simply softened them up with the run and then hit a sleeping secondary when they weren't expecting it. I mean, this was just a tactical masterclass really from Weber State. I mean, God. Again, this is a conference champion in the FBS who've just been rinsed at home. I mean, again, fair play Weber State. What do you make of this one?
Well, this is a classic case of Utah State. They're just drunk. They're hungover from a championship. They're going to have a dreadful year because they have taken their foot off their gas. They've now think they've done all the hard work last year. Like I say, Logan Bonner cruised to a championship last year. Then 3 games in, they can't wait for him to be benched. And this is not going to be a quick fix. This is going to be one of those seasons where everything goes wrong all season, and then it's just going to leave a sour taste in the mouth after the championship. Never should they be that inept. It's not even a loss, like I say, it's the standard of loss, like I say, like it looks like it, the tables were turned completely. Utah State looked like the big sky side, and I don't really go from here. That was one of their easiest games on their schedule, and Logan Bonner is going to struggle to get back on the field and not get booed every time he touches the ball, because I think fans are probably done with. But it's not like the backup came in and did anything to keep him off the field. So, I'm sorry, Utah State fans, just make the most of last season, because this season's going to shit.
I know. I didn't see this coming. You thought they might just sort of regress to the mid-table or whatever, but I mean, they couldn't put away UConn. UConn ran for over 200 yards on them, and it's just like, you're in the Mountain West. This is a tough division. The lines of scrimmage, you're meant to be good there. You're meant to be quite strong there. To not sack an FCS team is bad. 2 of 15 on third downs on the offense. I mean, that's like 13%. I don't even have to look to know that's 0 percentile when it comes to that. And Bonner, I would never have assumed Logan Bonner would be getting booed after 3 games. If you told me who was the first team who's going to turn on the quarterback this year, I would not have said Utah State, and it's absolutely crazy. But again, Weber State, congratulations! What a fantastic victory for them. They're going to go and enjoy that, and rightly so. They've just obliterated the Mountain West Kings 35-7 at home and didn't allow a single offensive touchdown. That is incredible for them. Chrome's in the building on YouTube, says, what up though to you, good sir, hope you are well this evening. Let's move it on, guys, so we still have a lot of upsets to go through here, and let's go for the high scorer of the week. This was a 116 point thriller. The Eastern Kentucky Colonels going to the home of the Bowling Green Falcons. This is FCS on FBS again. Eastern Kentucky won this one 59 points to 57. So this was a thriller. So you will find the Eastern Kentucky Colonels in the Ohio Valley Conference in the FCS. They outlasted the Falcons in 7 rounds of overtime. This went to overtime 7. This went on forever and a day. It actually ties the mark for the second longest overtime contest in Division I football history. That's how long this game went on. Eastern Kentucky, they've earned its first victory over an FBS opponent since 2014. So that's 8 years since they last had a scalp like this, so big for them. But as I say, this was damn close. They needed a touchdown off the last play of regulation time to take it to overtime, which they were able to do. Last play of the game, Eastern Kentucky took it to overtime. Both teams scored in overtime 1. Bowling Green thought they'd won it in overtime 2 when they converted a score after Eastern Kentucky had scored, but they'd not converted the 2-point attempt afterwards. But it came back for a holding penalty, so it was declined. Bowling Green again thought they'd won it in the 3rd. They got the 2-point conversion, and then Eastern Kentucky got hit with an offensive pass interference penalty that backed them up 15 yards for the conversion. But they still somehow managed to convert the 2-point conversion from about 16-17 yards out. Both teams converted 2 points in overtime 4, including a very nice over-the-shoulder throw from Bowling Green's quarterback Matt McDonald, which kept them alive. That was actually really nice throw, that was. Both teams made stops in overtime 5. In overtime 6, the Falcons, that's Bowling Green, got hit with a DPI penalty, defensive pass interference, and Eastern Kentucky ran it in from the 2, and then McDonald saved Bowling Green again with another over-the-shoulder throw, exactly the same as he did in overtime 4. This marathon finally came to an end in overtime 7. Bowling Green had a pass tipped. Eastern Kentucky hit a screen pass. The Bowling Green defender missed his tackle, and they dived in for the win. The game took 4.5 hours from start to finish. A marathon, but one that Eastern Kentucky will absolutely love.
Yep. No defense. Not an ounce of defense until overtime. It's one of those games where, as a fan, it leaves you in nightmares. Like I say, even if you're Eastern Kentucky, at least you managed to get away with the win. But we knew Bowling Green before this game were one of the worst teams in the FBS, and they didn't let us down, did they? Bless them. They just went out there and proved that they're still one of the worst. If you score that many points, there isn't a person on earth that should be beating you. like I said, and to then overtime 2 and 3 to overcome, like I say, push the other opposition back for penalties and still not win and not take their chances. They pretty much deserve to lose in the end. If you can't put away sides and they just keep dragging you through the mire, eventually your luck will run out, and that just historically bad. Like I say, everything went bad, and it will not be remembered on fondly as one of the highest scoring games of, like say, the 2020s.
No, it won't, and it's hard for Bowling Green to get taken seriously when they continue to lose games like this, so that's on them for having the rep that they do. But again, it's another upset. The FCS taking down FBS. Well done to the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. Another FCS team who upset FBS opposition, and you know, I think this was another team we were waiting to let us down because we knew they were going to be bad this year, but they've kind of had an easy schedule to start. You've got Incarnate Ward, 55-41 winners over Nevada. And this was another road win. This was Incarnate Ward going to Nevada, dropping a 50-burger on them, and that Nevada team that we were worried about this year really shone through. I think they thought that maybe at 2-0 that they'd gotten away with it and this season wouldn't be so bad. Think again, Wolfpack fans, this is going to be a tough season for you. So, as I say, Nevada had gone 2-0. They've got wins over New Mexico State and Texas State. But as I said, we knew this was a bad team, and Incarnate Ward really came and blew the doors off all that early season optimism for Ken Wilson and his crew there. Now, don't get me wrong, Incarnate Ward are one of the better FCS teams out there, but again, they are on the road, and they had to overcome some initial adversity in this game. They were behind early in this one. Get this for an offensive slugfest. There were 1,226 yards of offense in this game between the two sides. Incarnate Ward's first two offensive drives resulted in a fumble and a pick. Nevada put up 10 points on the back of those turnovers, and by the end of quarter one, Nevada are actually winning this 17-9, but then everything went wrong as Incarnate Ward just completely shredded the Nevada secondary. So Incarnate Ward put up 645 yards of offense, and 406 of those were passing yards. Their leading receiver, Darion Chafin, posted a stat line, so get this, 262 yards and 2 touchdowns he had on 7 receptions. 7 receptions, an average of 37.4 yards per catch. Incarnate Ward averaged 15.6 yards per play on average during the game. That's a first down and a half, that's per pass. They also ran the ball at 5.7 yards per carry, so both facets of the offense really couldn't be stopped. The defense did get rinsed by Nevada, who had 581 yards of their own offense, but the key difference is they brought a lot of pressure against Nate Cox, the Nevada quarterback. They brought pressure against him all afternoon. They sacked him 6 times. The defensive lineman for Incarnate Ward, Chris Whitaker, had 4 sacks on the day, as well as 9 other tackles. These few key defensive plays were sort of what tipped it in Incarnate Ward's favour. Now, Nate Cox, he did what he could for Nevada. He went 22 of 43, 302 yards and 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. Running back Toa Tawa, we know how good he is, 166 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. That was his 12th 100-yard rushing game for Nevada. The guy is a stud, lost on a bad team. But the offense really never stood a chance with how quick the Cardinals were putting up points. Nevada's pass protection was horrendous. And now they face a matchup against Iowa next, which I can 100% tell you is not on any list we are going to preview this week. Not a chance in hell, but Nevada finally showed their true colours here. And Incarnate Ward, what a victory for them.
Yeah, like I say, fantastic. Just an offensive masterclass. Defensive coordinators and players, just look away. Like I say, hang your heads in shame on both sides because you both got absolutely rinsed in the secondary. That's it. Incarnate Ward, their defensive line can at least say they turned up and affected the game. Like I say, because to say that they were so effective in causing plays in the backfield, Nevada to not turn over was pretty impressive. Like I said, their QB showed composure, even if he got absolutely pummeled. And Tua Tawa managed to get some yardage there, but you're not going to see a receiver this year that catches more than 5 passes and averages more than 37 yards of reception. That is embarrassing. Like, what were the corners doing? What were the safeties doing?
That's meant to be the strength of that Nevada defense as well. We said that the better players are in the secondary. So
absolutely shredded. But no, this was a proper slugfest, I'd say. And Incarnate Ward, this is an Incarnate Ward side that have just lost Cameron Ward as well.
Yeah.
Their star QB went to Washington State. So to come up and then roll over an FBS side and see their old quarterback who has so far is not exactly lighting up the stat pages either. They don't need him. So yeah, they're doing just fine without you, unfortunately, Cameron, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's at least they've reloaded and gone, and yeah, Ken Wilson's got his work cut out at Nevada. This was never going to be the year of success for them, but I think his job just got a hell of a lot harder. Ken Stouder in the chat goes, Iowa who? Exactly. You know that, I know I said I wouldn't really mention it, but the Iowa-Nevada game this coming week, I think the over-under is 38. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't think many college games go below 40 points when it goes to over and under, because very few college games end in under 40 points, but I think that's still one I'd be smashing the under on.
Yeah, I won't be watching it. Well, no. I might watch it intriguing. I might watch it because it's going to be a horror show. Like I said, I don't trust either team to win. I also don't care who loses because Iowa could have won this weekend and they were still too bad to even do that.
I tell you what, I think Iowa are 23-point favourites as well. I think I'd bet against them not scoring 23 points full stop. I mean, I don't know how the hell they've worked out that they're 23-point favourites over Nevada. I know Nevada are a Mountain West side and this is a Big Ten side, but Iowa are bad. 14 points in 2 games, and only one of them's a touchdown. I mean, Jesus. Yeah, let's get off that anyhow, because that is what you want to send to someone if you haunt someone. Put that game in their mind while they're sleeping. That will cause them nightmares for days. And this doesn't stop. The FCS upsets over the FBS keep coming. Holy Cross 37, Buffalo 31. Yet another road victory for an FCS team, upsetting FBS opposition. Holy Cross playing the Patriot League down in the FCS. And they took down, like I say, Buffalo, who play in the MAC. Now the Crusaders, that's Holy Cross, they're taking a liking to FBS upsets. They took down UConn last season, and now they're moving up in the world. They've gone into the MAC looking for victims, and they've found them there. So Holy Cross are becoming a team that you don't really want to put on your schedule. So this was a really epic finish. I'm going to say this. I watched the end of this game, and it was amazing. So Buffalo had leveled up 31-31 with a field goal with 34 seconds to go, thinking they got the game to overtime. Holy Cross had 31 seconds and no timeouts to get a score. They managed to get up to the Buffalo 46 and they got it spiked with 3 seconds left on the clock. Quarterback Matthew Sluka, he was given great pass protection for this, and he lobbed a Hail Mary attempt. He wound up and he let fly. They were at the Buffalo 46. He dropped back, so he was in his own half when he threw this. And wide receiver Jalen Coker for Holy Cross, he went up against 4 Bulls defenders for that pass, 4 all the way around him. He beat the lot of them, and he was 2 yards short, so when he caught it, he had to fight his way over the line against 2 of them as well. But yeah, they won via a Hail Mary. Sluka had a great day for the Crusaders. He was 13 of 21, 238 yards and 3 touchdowns in the passing game, no turnovers. He also had 146 yards on the ground. The aforementioned Jalen Coker had 4 receptions for 147 yards at 36.8 yards per catch. The Buffalo quarterback Cole Snyder had a decent game. He was 24 of 34, 305 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they had 2 100-yard receivers on the day in Justin Marshall, who was 5 for 116 and 2 touchdowns, and Kean Williams, who was 8 for 105 and 1 touchdown. But yeah, Holy Cross are not a team that you want to put on your schedule at the minute, because they're taking a liking to upsetting the FBS sides.
Yeah, like I say, I love the fact they didn't settle for overtime or didn't even just try to get in field goal range. They just went balls to the wall, like I say, and slug it downfield. Let's end this game here and now. And the catch reminded me, like I say, Calvin Johnson against the Bengals, like I say, where everyone was just draped over him. And Cook said, nope, snatched out the air, ended it there and then. And yeah, they've been really good. Was it a year or two ago they beat Minnesota? I swear they did. I'm sure they got a huge upset as well, like 2 years ago.
That'll
They beat them.
That'll mean they've beat.
Could have been them.
That'll mean they've 3 straight years of FBS wins.
I'm sure they upset them on like one of the early weeks. But yeah, they play like really small FCS schools as well. Like Patriots League is a small league in the FCS. It's not even one of the big ones. And yeah, they're just fun to watch. Like I said, they've kind of been in playoff contention for the last few years, trying to sneak through and be Patriots champions. But yeah, good fun side to watch, and they're always game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's fun. I watched a bit of this, and yeah, they're a fun team to watch. And again, no turnovers, kept hold of the ball, did what they needed to do, and like you say, they were ballsy. You may as well, if you're going to go to these bigger teams, you're not expected to win. Go out there, toss it up, see if you can get it. The rewards are there to be had, and Holy Cross are reaping the rewards of that victory there. So well done to them. Now we're going to stop with the FCS for a minute, and we're actually going to go to the Pac-12. Pac-12 upset Big Ten this week, and we mentioned Incarnate Word a minute ago, and you mentioned that their quarterback Cameron Ward had left them this year to go to Washington State. Well, his career at Washington State's got off to a decent start. And again, this is yet another road trip that we've had going on here. They go to the home of ranked Wisconsin, who are playing in the Big Ten, and they beat them. Same scoreline as Texas A&M and Appalachian State. Washington State win 17 points to 14. So get this, Big Ten. So Wisconsin were not only ranked at number 19 for this, so this was a ranked team that Washington State have taken down, but they were 17.5 point home favourites for this one. So that's a big margin of victory there that they're expecting them to win by. This isn't just like Washington State have come and taken down a bad Big Ten team. 17.5 point the spread was with this one. But the Cougars, the Washington State Cougars, they came in, they outplayed their opponents, and this was their first win against an AP ranked opponent since 2018. So 4 years since they've beaten a team who were ranked. So Washington State first up, they played very tough in this game. All 14 Wisconsin points came in the second quarter. So for 3 quarters, they actually shut them out. That is a ranked team at home. Shut them out for 3 quarters. Cameron Ward, this is the first time I've really got to watch him up at the FBS level. I'm really intrigued by him. He started bad. I'm not going to lie. He started out bad. So he looked like because this is his first FBS on FBS game. They played Idaho last week. So this is actually the first time that he's played against FBS opposition in the FBS. And like I say, this is a ranked team on the road he's gone to, so this ain't an easy assignment for him. They looked a little nervous. He made some wayward throws. He got picked off in the end zone. He failed to spot a safety who was coming over to double up the play. I don't think it's something that he's used to seeing at the FCS level. It was a bad throw, but as the game went on, he did get a bit more confident. He looked good at times. They were under a lot of pressure for some of it, and when it came to the fourth quarter, he actually made some real clutch throws, and he scrambled a few times as well to keep drives alive, helped drain the clock so that Wisconsin weren't able to get back in the game. He did throw a second pick, but that was after he got hit, but his receiver came back into play, punched it out the defender's hand, and Washington State actually got it back. So he threw a pick, but Washington State ended up with the ball on that play. But overall, his day, not too bad. 17 of 28 for 200 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. As I say, the interceptions cost nothing at the end of the day. The defense held really stoutly against Graham Mertz and Braylon Allen. I know Ryan's a massive fan of Braylon Allen. He might be one of the best running backs in the FBS. But yeah, the defense was really good. They had a pick, they had a sack, they had a strip sack of Graham Mertz, which, weirdly enough, again, they strip sacked him, picked it up, and then Wisconsin recovered it. So both quarterbacks lost the ball on a play, but their team still ended up with the ball at the end. So yeah, they got that, but they induced a whole load of holding penalties against the Wisconsin O-line as well. That D-line got a lot of pressure, and Wisconsin started getting dirty trying to deal with it. Wisconsin, for want of a better word, were poor, and they were plagued by indiscipline and poor special teams that really hampered the cause here. So just listen to this laundry list of issues they had. 11 penalties for 106 yards. The penalties included holding, unsportsmanlike conduct, and false starts. Special teams was atrocious. Kicker missed both his field goal attempts. The second one didn't even reach the posts, and it was from 43 yards and would have tied the game for them and took it into overtime. Kick returner called a fair catch in the first, and he muffed it. Wisconsin had to start from their own 10 as a result of that. And on that drive, they go over to... They would turn the ball over on downs, and Washington scored from that, so that all came from the muffed kick. They allowed a 73-yard return at the start of the second half from the kickoff, and Washington scored from that drive as well. The cornerback Jay Shaw, I mentioned, picked off Cameron Ward, tried to run with it, failed to see the receiver was coming back, so he got a pick and then he lost it. And because he lost the ball, Washington scored a touchdown 6 plays later from that, so more points they got from that. Graham Mertz, 18 of 31 for 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. But get this is a very unpleasant record about Graham Mertz. His record, so he has a very unpleasant record of 0-7 when he has to make more than 24 pass attempts in a game. That is an indictment on your ceiling as a quarterback when you have never won a game when you've had to attempt more than 24 passes. As for Braylon Allen, he's getting wasted on this team. 21 carries, 98 yards and 12 receiving yards, so he had 110 all-purpose yards on the day. Tight end Clay Cundiff had 4 receptions for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. But Wisconsin, indisciplined, bad on special teams, lot of turnovers. I mean, you just can't do that. And Washington State, despite not looking great themselves, took full advantage.
Yeah, they really let them off the hook. Both teams were bad. Ball security was atrocious. Teams were just punching balls out left, right and centre. Teams, do you know what, players were pissing about. They weren't carrying the ball in their right hand. They were swinging it around like a loaf of bread when they were like carrying yards after the catch. I could have got a fumble. I could have punched one of them out. Like, it was poor on both sides. I did forget to mention in my uniform watch, Washington State has beautiful red and grey. How does red and grey look good together? It shouldn't look good together. But it looked really nice. Their uniforms were really good this weekend. But no, ugly game. And do you know what? Yeah, Wisconsin, under Graham Mertz, they will never do anything. He is a scrub. Braylon Allen can't do it all himself. I said, Braylon Allen is still only 18. And he's like 6'2". It's like 230 pounds. If you build a running back on Madden, it's him. So he's going to be wasted. I bet he can't wait for the drafting to get out. Like I said, I thought Wisconsin have a bounce back year, but no, continue to shoot themselves in the foot. And yeah, Washington State escaped because they managed to get a few costly turnovers. But yeah, that was good for them. But yeah, Cameron Ward is going to take time to grow.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if he's better than Jaden Delora, who went to Arizona. But yeah, it's going to be a slow process of him suiting to life at the FBS. So they might cause an upset this year, but yeah, I think this is both going to be scrappy seasons for both of them.
Well, I mean, all I'll say about him, I kind of enjoyed what he did. I thought he got more confident as the game got on Cameron Wood. All I'll say is this was his first game in the FBS and he's got a road win against a ranked side, so he's done all right. I agree, they weren't amazing, but this was poor. And I mean, what about Graham Mertz? 0 of 7. 0 of 7 when he has to pass more than 24 times. That shows you definitively, without question, Braylon Allen is that offense.
Oh yeah, Braylon Allen, let's say, he is the only way they're going to win anything. He is a top 3 FBS back on his day, but he needs some help. Offensive line as well, poor on the day. He would have got way more yards if they're not held him back and not set him back, so that was very frustrating for them. But yeah, so it's a totally one-dimensional team. And that's why Wisconsin won't make a title game.
No, and the Big Ten's not really been shown in a good light at the minute. I think that West Division especially is struggling like hell at the minute. There's already a clear tier system there as to who's good and who's not. And yeah, it's a shame. You thought they might take a step forward, like the Nebraskas and the Wisconsins this year. Now, I think they're just as big of frauds as they have been in recent years, unfortunately. Ken mentions a bit more about uniforms. He goes, I do respect that Iowa uniform looks so much like the Steelers. I mean, yeah, I'm not a fan of the Steelers uniforms, but I can see why you'd like them if you do. I mean, it's a lot better than what they play anyhow. You've got to have some redeeming feature about them there. Ashley is in the Twitch chat. Of course, the first thing he says is Florida suck. Go Knowles. He says he's just checking in from work. Hope you're having a good evening at work, Ash. We're not talked about Florida State yet, so you've not missed any insults. So make sure you're in here for when we start insulting them later. Oh my God, I feel like we've been talking about these for ages, and there's still more that was done this weekend. So, Northwestern. We wondered whether they turned a corner when they played Nebraska a few weeks back. We thought, oh, maybe this is the year that Northwestern are actually good. And they had a bye week on the second week, so this is only the second game. But as it turns out, I think it's just a case of Nebraska are really, really bad, and Northwestern kind of with the best of two bad teams on the day over in Ireland, because for the third year in a row, they have lost to the Duke Blue Devils, who are considered to be one of the worst teams in the Power 5. And I actually checked this. This is 3 years in a row they've lost to Duke. And they lost at home again. Duke on the road, 31-23 winners over Northwestern. So Northwestern were favoured by 9.5 points in this one. But like I say, they lost the previous two against them, and unfortunately that record now stands at 3. Now, Ryan, we are always told that an inch does not matter. But try telling that to Northwestern fans who wished they had an extra inch on Saturday. So trailing by 8 and on 3rd and 1 from about the Duke 13, I think it was, 17 seconds left on the clock, they handed the ball off to running back Evan Hull, and he charged through a huge gap to the end zone for what seemed like an easy score. However, 2 Duke defenders came in, sandwiched him, knocked the ball out a literal inch before it crossed the plane and would have counted as a touchdown. It was knocked loose, and it was recovered by Duke defensive back Brandon Johnson. Like I say, it was mere inches before the play, and a couple more inches he'd have been in. This was heartbreak for Northwestern after coming off their Week 0 win against Nebraska. They were looking to go 2-0, but it's not like they didn't have chances. They were in a 21-10 hole at half-time. They could not recover. They ran 87 offensive plays to Duke's 53. So 87 to 53 in favour of Northwestern on offensive plays, but they had 2 interceptions, they had a forced fumble, and they were running the ball at 2.7 yards per carry. So a lot of these extra plays didn't really amount to much, because you needed 4 plays just to reach a first down. Duke, more clinical. Ryan Helinski, he was forced to throw the ball 60 times. He had 36 completions, 435 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The running back Evan Hull, outside of the game-losing fumble.
There.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a shame for him. He had 17 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 14 catches for 213 yards and a touchdown in the passing game. So he had 278 all-purpose yards, and he was an inch away from scoring the game-winning touchdown. Duke quarterback Riley Leonard, 13 of 24 for 240 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Northwestern, they just could not stop the run. Jordan Waters, the running back for Duke, had 91 yards on 10 carries and 2 touchdowns. That's 9.1 yards per carry. Jalen Coleman had 85 yards on 11 carries with a touchdown at 7.5 yards per carry. And Duke had 2 100-yard receivers as well. Jalen Calhoun had 6 for 108. Eli Pancol had 2 for 106. So he averaged just a mere 53 yards per catch. Northwestern just can't beat Duke.
No, and you know what, Duke have found a quarterback. I watched their Temple game, and that Riley Leonard, he looks okay. Like I said, they have not been blessed with quarterback play in the last few years since, well, even Daniel Jones wasn't that very good, and that's where their struggles have always started. But he's a good slot receiver. the Iraq ways because they're one of the basement sides in the ACC. They're a basketball school. Football school gets no love. And to say that he praised the God, like I say, to have the other team play 80 offensive snaps and still not be able to put them away tells you that, one, they've finally got lucky. They're riding a bit of luck. They made a very clutch play at the end there, even if it was in basically a desperation as to worse he looks. He is another guy like Graham Mertz, where if you ask him to throw the ball too many times, he starts to look very ragged. And even with the ground game, which was pretty much Hull is probably one of the star players to watch right now in football. He had a massive day against Nebraska as well. He's kind of come out of nowhere, but yeah, it's Nebraska. Northwestern would like that one back. I think they'd like to think they could win that on most of the days, but they just weren't clinical enough. And Duke looked good. Like I said, they're riding a crest of a wave right now, and they look like they're in for a good season potentially.
And Northwestern coming off a bye, they've not played for a fortnight, so you're kind of like, they should be healthy, they should be fitter, and like you say, Duke came and outperformed them. They, outfought them, which seemed really weird, because like you say, Duke have had that problem for years where they've just not beaten teams aggressively, whereas here they did. But I agree with you. I think Evan Hull's a star, and I think he's going to, I don't know if he's draft eligible this year. I think he is. I'd be interested to see if he decides to chance his luck and declare this year, but if he carries on the way that he is, then just ride the hot hand and go for it. So be interested to see how he does there. But yeah, fair play to Duke again. Another upset on the cards. Right, we're going to move into the Big 12 for the first time. This is an all Big 12 fixture. You may think, is this really much of an upset? But this involves one of the Big 12's worst teams statistically. Of course, I'm talking about the Kansas Jayhawks. So they've been the butt of many a joke over the years when it comes to college. They've not been great in recent years, but went to the home of the West Virginia Mountaineers. Is it Mountaineers? Am I going to get this wrong? Yeah, the Mountaineers, West Virginia Mountaineers, on the road, won 55-42. This was another game that went to overtime, and when Kansas come to your home and stick down 55 on you, you're got to start getting worried. So this is a really significant win for Kansas, which is why I've put it on here. So it is the first time since 2011 that they have been 2-0. It's the first time since 2009 that they've won a Big 12 opener. It's the first time since 2008 that they've won a Big 12 opener on the road, and it is the first ever time they've won at the Milan Puskar Stadium, which is West Virginia's stadium. So a lot of records went down here. So this was a very topsy-turvy game. Western Virginia 14-0 up by the end of quarter one. Kansas fought back and were ahead 42-31 with just 4 minutes left on the clock, 11-point lead. West Virginia somehow managed to level it up and it went to overtime. So West Virginia chose defense first. They had a 6-yard tackle for loss on third down to force a field goal, but their defensive end Tyth Alston was called for a roughing the passer call, and big penalty right up to the end zone. Kansas made them pay with a touchdown. Western Virginia were up next. It was their play in overtime. Second down, nearly fumbled the ball and gave it away. Third down, JT Daniels got picked off by cornerback Jacoby Bryant, who returned it for an 86-yard pick six. Game over. West Virginia's side, JT Daniels, he was 28 of 40, 359 yards, 3 touchdowns with this first few weeks. The wide receiver, he had another great game, 11 for 152 and 2 touchdowns, and I'm going to watch more tape on him because he looks amazing. Kansas aside, Jalen Daniels, the quarterback, 18 of 29, 219 yards, 3 touchdowns, 85 rushing yards. Both their running backs had 2 touchdowns on the day. The run game was good, and finally, a little bit of good news for the Kansas Jayhawks, Ryan.
Yeah, and do you know what? I like them. Isn't it nice to see all those teams that are good at basketball play some good football? Like I say, it's good for them. Like I say, Duke, Kansas, and what's his name? Is it Lonnie Phillips or Lonnie Phelps? They had the leading sack player in the nation, didn't they? Lonnie Phelps, yeah. They had the defensive end going in this game with 3.5 sacks already. So they're generating up pressure on defense. They're scoring pick sixes. They're winning through the air, and then they're coming up and making big plays. Like, this is another team that may have turned a corner. And like I said, they've been the butt of many jokes in the Big 12 for a long time now. But was it last year, Oklahoma, that crazy game, like I say, that everyone gave props for? They've come close to causing some major upsets in the last few years, and have got the odd one. They're one of those teams that just sometimes just fall just that bit short, or just don't get on the line, or just don't get recognition they deserve. But yeah, they are game as hell. They went out there, and JT Daniels, Jay did pretty well, like you say. It was just that overtime. That's the one throw he got back. He'd done a pretty perfect game up until then. Just like another game where questionable defense, like I say. And I always question, when you go into overtime, you take the ball first on offense. I do not like going on defense first, because you immediately put yourselves on the back foot if they score, and then the pressure ramps up. So I am always team score first, put them under pressure. I feel like they would have done that if they've got the do-over again. But yeah, massive win for Kansas. West Virginia, yep, head coach is in trouble. They're up. They get a good week, they get a bad week. It's just topsy-turvy. There's no stability right now. And that team has been underperforming for a couple of years now. So, yeah, I think they're in for a turbulent season.
But I mean, you go head-to-head against Pittsburgh all game. You look good on defense. Your defensive line's causing all sorts of havoc. You hit Keaton Slovis that many times, you knock him off the field. And then it comes to Kansas, and no disrespect to Kansas, but you give up 55 on defense. Then it's like, what the hell? Where was the defense? If they had the same defense that they've had against Pittsburgh, they'd have won this at a canter, but it vanished. So there's some big problems there for them. 55 points against Kansas is no laughing matter.
It's a lack of consistency.
Yeah,
I say it's just not there.
Yeah.
Dante Stills, like I say, against Pittsburgh, had a massive game. He was really strong up front, but they just were not getting pressure in this game against Kansas. There was just too much time in the pocket and too comfortable.
No, I agree. Western Virginia in for some tough times here. Right, the next one. And yeah, there are next ones. This is just how many teams upset others this weekend. And we mentioned about how he's been removed from his position here, but we're going to talk about the game. Georgia Southern on the road to Nebraska. G5 against Power 5 once again. 45-42, Georgia Southern win this by. And you've got to think, Ryan, Clay Helton's going to be feeling some great form of satisfaction here, because I think it was almost this time last year that USC fired him and he lost his job. I think he only lasted 3 weeks last year with USC. Fast forward 12 months, and this Georgia Southern side are actually playing really good. And he seems to be finding some success in transitioning them away from the triple option, which is the problem they've had for years. They tried to not be a triple option team, but they ain't been a good passing team. Well, you're starting to see the shoots of this passing game come into fruition now, and them not... I mean, they're still using the run, but certainly they're becoming a more balanced offense here. And he also dealt the fatal blow to Scott Frost. As I've said, I imagine he's not happy that another coach has lost his job, but he must feel some sense of smugness that it's not him this year and it's someone else. So Scott Frost, just a few things for him. His record went to 5-22 in one-score games. I mean, statistically, you can't be that bad in one-score games. Statistics say you must, not even if it's not half, you win 40% of your one-score games, because just at some point you've got to win one. He's 5 of 22. That's not even 25%. That's nearly 20% victories in one-score games, which is not good enough. And he even managed to break one last record on his way out. Nebraska were 214-0 in games at home where they scored 35 plus points. Let me just repeat that. 214-0 when they score 35 points more at home until Saturday. That record is now 214-1. So well done, Scott Frost. You really etched yourself into folklore here. When people ask what that one defeat is in the future, you are going to get mentioned. So Georgia Southern dropped 642 yards of offense on the Cornhuskers, including 409 from the arm of Kyle Van Treese. who also ran in the game-winning touchdown with 36 seconds left on a quarterback draw. They won the game with a quarterback draw. Running back Gerald Green had 132 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 10 carries. Jalen White had 85 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing as well. As Nebraska, outside of their safety, Marquez Buford Jr., who had 2 interceptions, they offered absolutely nothing on defense. 3 Georgia receivers went over 80 yards. On Nebraska's side, I mean, Casey Thompson did everything he could. He threw no picks, 318 yards and a touchdown in the air, 3 rushing touchdowns, but he is leading a broken program with no leader. Marcus Washington, the receiver, had 6 receptions for 123 yards. Anthony Grant, the running back, had 138 yards and a touchdown on 27 carries. But I mean, 650 yards put down on you by Georgia Southern. You should be ashamed if that happens.
Yeah, that's bad. So that's not even Power 5 bad. That's Group of 5 bad. Like, no disrespect. I remember Kyle Van Treese. I think he's the Buffalo transfer quarterback.
Yeah.
He was not very good at Buffalo. I remember that. He struggled there. So to come in and to drop a hammer on Nebraska, it's kind of funny. Like I said, there's been famous, there's been not remembered, and there's been infamous. Scott Frost will go down in infamy in Nebraska as getting a lot of things wrong. And part of me feels like Casey Thompson probably not bothered. He's just happy to play football. Like I say, he was a bench rider at Texas. He was not getting much of a look in. As long as he does well, even if the team's poor, but he still does his job and doesn't put them in bad situations, he'll probably still come out of this looking not too bad. But Ocean Mathis, let's say the goal line, he has not had the impact I expected him to have as a transfer yet. I thought he would come in and be dominant off that edge, especially against a team like Georgia Southern. I feel like that defensive line was just weak. Like I said, that QB just had way too long to operate, just not integrating with him. So, yeah. And then the defense, secondary, Swiss cheese. Northwestern torched it. Georgia Southern and milking it as well. Clay Helton, probably even bothered. He probably went at home, got home, had a brandy, probably slept well, didn't care. Scott Frost got fired at all, because that's the kind of guy he is. I'd say, but I remember saying that I think that is a risky job for him to take, and I think he'd regret it. But so far, he's proven me wrong.
Yeah, he is. It's going to be intriguing to see how long this winning run goes on for. I'm not sure who they're playing next, but like I said, he seems to be successfully transitioning them away from the triple option, which was obviously their big undoing for years. When you can't run the ball well, then you've got no offense. Whereas now, at least it seems like they've got a passing offense going. So yeah, we'll see what happens with them. That's it for the upsets, at least that are not on the pick watch ones. I mentioned there were a couple of near upsets I just want to mention. We were blowing smoke up Coastal Carolina last week. Ran all over Army. Really impressed us on this one. This week, nearly lost to Gardner-Webb, the running Bulldogs out of the FCS. This one entered Gardner-Webb 27, Coastal 31. This is at Coastal's home. So as I say, like a week after literally bulldozing over Army, they nearly got upset by their FCS opponents in this one. And this was the definition of a shootout. 756 yards of passing offense, 93 yards of rushing offense. So, run game didn't exist in this one. This was just Grayson McCall and Bailey Fisher slinging it at one another's teams. I mean, to their credit, I guess Coastal have adapted. You know, they've won games now by heavy run against Army and heavy pass against Gardner-Webb, so that does show the versatility on the offense with them now, which will be interesting going forward to see if they can maintain that. But they cut this really fine. They were losing up until the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, and even then, it took 2 picks from quarterback Lance Boykin to finally put Gardner-Webb away. You know, they were on 2 good drives. He gets picks on both of them. Bailey Fisher, the Gardner-Webb quarterback, good day. 403 yards, a touchdown and 2 interceptions. But as I say, those 2 interceptions came right at the end of the fourth quarter when they were trying to launch it downfield to win. So you can't really blame him for that. He had 2 rush touchdowns as well. TJ Luther, the running No, the receiver, 5 for 188 yards. Cuttrell Hayward had 96 yards and a touchdown. Grayson McCall, he had a good day for Coastal, 22 of 30, 308 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. So, I mean, yeah, this was nearly a shock, this was. I would remember looking at the score and this thinking, this is getting a bit nervous now. They should be winning this. Now, they've just escaped, but all those questions we had about Coastal at the start of the year, the turnover on the team and that showed that there's still a lot of work to do with this team, and that result over Army is not the be-all and end-all this year.
No, they were lucky to escape this week. I think they'll just be relieved that they managed to get over the line. It's not a team you expect to get in a shootout with. It doesn't look good, like I say, because they could not shut down their passing offense. It made their secondary look a little bit wet behind the ears. And if anything, you could say that they took them a bit lightly. Maybe they weren't as respectful. Maybe they didn't take them as seriously from the start of the game that they should have done. And in the end, they were one of the teams to avoid an upset. Because if they'd have lost, we'd have been super critical. We'd have shit on them if they'd lost and not taken it too seriously. So I took their tail in between their legs and just limp away with the win. Live to fight another day. But yeah, like I say, they asked Grayson McCall to do too much, and he managed to just get over the line.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be lucky. They'll be feeling lucky, especially with all these teams who have lost this week. But just goes to show, so many teams stepped up this week and really gave FBS opposition a lot of trouble in this one. And the last one I'm going to mention, it's probably one of the biggest ones actually. Well, not the biggest ones, but this was nearly a monumental upset. Alabama do not like going to Texas. They lost to Texas A&M last year to lose their unbeaten record at the time. They went into the Longhorns this week, and I mean, I didn't have that on our pick watch. I didn't have it on an upset watch. I kind of thought about putting it in last week, so I thought, can Alabama do it in Texas? And I thought, no, they'll be fine. They were not fine in this game. Alabama won 20 points to 19 over the Longhorns, and you've got to figure, if Quinn Ewers doesn't get injured during the game when he does, and Bijan Robinson doesn't get injured during the game when he does, that Texas should have won this. And the shocking thing here, I was listening to this pod I do about listen to about college football. The guy who does the post-game win expectancy. The team who had the second lowest post-game win expectancy in this whole weekend, Alabama. Their post-game win expectancy was 18% to win this game. They should have lost this game. Texas should have won this game. But, the gods just... I mean, I don't know whether Nick Saban is like a voodoo doctor and said, right, I'm going to injure Quinn Ewers, going to injure Bijan Robinson, and, makes it happen with magic or whatever. It was very convenient that he got their best players injured who were ruining them, but... I mean, this was so close to a massive upset for Texas, and they are not going to get this out their system for a long time, because they should have won this game, shouldn't they?
Yeah, Texas were the better team. I watched this game and I thought Texas will be livid. That was one of their best chances to beat Bama for a long time. That play, that sack by Will Anderson that took them into field goal range and killed that drive towards the end of the game was huge. That was one of the plays where Texas, one of the nails in their coffin, because that sack doesn't happen. They get closer and closer moving down the field. And it was one of those games where it was on a knife edge constantly. Xavier Worthy, he is the real deal, that kid receiver. He makes guys look stupid week in, week out. And yeah, Texas, I felt sorry for them, like I say, because they played nearly a perfect game. Alabama had the odd bit of luck, things went their way. It was one of the best games to watch all weekend. We saw the vulnerabilities of Alabama, and they were exploited. And Hudson Card, I feel Texas is still probably in safe hands for the next 5 weeks. He still looked pretty good. He didn't skip much of a beat when he came in. Ewers was growing into the game. Injury happened at a really unfortunate time. Yeah, injuries is just one of them things, and it just bites Texas in gas at the wrong time. So yeah, Alabama can count themselves very lucky because I think they fell on the side of the scoreline where I don't think they were that worthy winners.
No, not at all. Here's Johnny's joined us in the YouTube chat. Thank you for joining us. Bit of Lions thing. He says, glad the Lions scored 35, but yeah, we still lost. Yeah, we get you. We're frustrated with that one from the weekend there. The Texas loss was excruciating. He also says, yes, it was. Like you said, Xavier Worthy was 5 receptions for 97 yards. Great day for him. I mean, Bijan had like 3 receptions for 73 yards. I know he run the ball not usually as well as he does, but I mean, you're up against that Bama offensive line. And Will Anderson is showing why he's a number 1 pick in the draft. Like you said, that play from him saved Alabama. And that's what number 1 picks in the draft do. They make game-changing plays like that, and he did. I saw a crazy stat for this game. I can't remember it like literally for the yardage in there, but the first 3 quarters, I think they said Alabama amassed about 160 yards of offense and 6 first downs in 3 quarters. In the 4th quarter, they had 180 yards and 10 first downs. So that just shows you how 6 first downs, Alabama, over 3 quarters of a game. You never hear that, ever. That just shows you what such a good job that Texas did on them there. And I mean, is Xavier Worthy draft eligible this year? Is he coming to the draft this year, or is he going to wait?
He might be eligible, but if he's got any, I don't know, he might transfer. If he stays in college, he might leave Texas, because he can leave Texas and go wherever he wants.
Bama might want him now.
I would be surprised if he stays in college if he leaves Texas for his last year of eligibility, just like Jordan Addison did.
Yeah, absolutely. Jahmyr Gibbs doing well for them. Didn't run the ball much, but he was their leading receiver and he got a touchdown, so I mean, he's doing it tricky. He's not really done it on the ground yet so much, but he's showing his receiving. So obviously he did it at Georgia Tech, but you know, Jahmyr Gibbs doing well as well. I think he's coming to the draft this year as well.
Yeah, he was never going to do it rushing because he was a big time receiver as well at Georgia Tech. Like I said, because they ran the triple option, but he got short passes and screens and stuff like that. He is the better receiver than he is runner. But if you look at like scrimmage yards throughout the season, he'll be an outside Heisman candidate because he'll just wrap up the yardage overall. But as a pure runner, he's never just going to get it done in that sole factor.
No. I tell you what, I'm not fully sold on Bryce Young yet either. I know he's doing alright, but in this game it was pedestrian. You know, he didn't turn it over, but I'm still not out on him and Stroud yet. They've got to show a lot more for me if we're going to consider taking them high in the draft if that's where we go. But yeah, that's there's another one we remain to see, and that is everything in terms of the upsets and the near upsets. There were 12 games there, and there was some shockers in there. I mean, which one was the biggest shock for you out of all those? Which one did you just not see coming?
See, I saw Notre Dame coming. I saw them losing a big game, so that wasn't the biggest surprise. I don't know, actually. I don't know which one was more shocking, because you could make a case that they all deserve to be upset.
Yeah.
Everyone had it coming.
Yeah, they did. So yeah, some absolute shockers this week. So yeah, great well done to all the teams who caused upsets. Fair play for you going out there and doing your thing. Right, now we're just going to take a quick go through the pick-em ones. Probably not going to spend too much time on these this week because we will go on forever and a day if we do. But because we have the 10 fixtures going on this week. In fact, why don't we start with your team, Ryan? I mean, I thought we'll get it out of the way while we're here. But I was going to pick Arizona State last week. I thought, could they cause the upset here? But you talked me out of it. And I am damn glad you talked me out of that one. So Arizona State on the road to Oklahoma State fell 34 points to 17. I'll just hand this over to you because you watched them more. What did you think of this one?
Well, Emory Jones didn't turn the ball over. He wasn't bad. Xavier Baladay had another 100-yard rushing game and touchdowns. He's turning out to be the gem that I knew he would. But Spencer Sanders, just efficient. And we punted a lot. We just didn't get drives going. They just had the way more of the ball and just way more efficient. And in the end, they were just clinical on offense. They look like an offensive threat this year. They're putting points on teams, and they're not taking their foot off the gas. And they're a threat. I think they are a serious threat to the Big 12 this year. They look like they could win the title. They look like they're up threat. And Sanders looks like he's finally shaking off those issues where he goes missing in games here. We were sadly beaten, but beaten by a much better side, so I didn't take much from it.
Not too disappointed. Well, I guess disappointed, but not unexpected, I would say, for that one. No. Right, let's go through some of these others. So we both picked correctly in that one. Another one we both picked correctly in: South Carolina and Arkansas, the Gamecocks versus the Razorbacks. Arkansas, we both picked, came out on top of this one, 44 points to 30. Kind of thought it might have been a little bit closer than that, but well, apparently not. Spencer Rattler threw all day long because the Gamecocks just did not run the ball whatsoever. He had 376 yards, a touchdown and an interception. On the Arkansas side, KJ Jefferson, my draft crush and who I am a stan for, had a good day. 18 of 21 for 162 yards and 1 touchdown passing, so nearly a perfect day for him on the ball. He also ran for 67 yards and a touchdown, and he made one of the best diving plays you'll ever make in your life. Got hit, was falling over, threw it about 20 yards down the field to his receiver. It was chef's kiss, and I am slowly, bit by bit, starting to build up a KJ Jefferson fan club. I'm really enjoying what he's doing there. Jaden Hazelwood is looking really good at wide receiver. The edge player, Drew Sanders. I mean, talk about Drew Sanders a minute. He's transferred in from Alabama. Obviously, didn't get much of a chance there, but boy, oh boy, he looks amazing for Arkansas. He's really hit the ground running there. And a couple of sacks in this one, just, made the South Carolina offensive line his own personal group of slaves all day long.
Didn't he have 2 sacks, a forced fumble, a pass defended, and 11 tackles as well?
Yeah.
I think he got SEC Defensive Player of the Week. I think it was announced today.
Yeah, it did. I mean, those are just crazy stats, really, they are. But, yeah, absolutely great performance there from him. So, Arkansas moved to 2-0. South Carolina are 1-1. Still not seeing much out of Spencer Rattler, but we'll see that one going forward. Baylor Byu. I watched this one. I'm pretty sure you watched this as well. It was a slugfest. Baylor are a very aggressive team, very tough in the trenches, but so are BYU. And while this wasn't one for the casual who loves to see tons of offense there and everything, for the trained football eye who likes big, tough encounters, just two teams really slugging it out on one another. I mean, this all went all the way to overtime too as well. This was another overtime game. This must have really taxed those sides, but this was a really fun one. So BYU won 26-20. We had both picked Baylor for this, but I wasn't disappointed when this was over because I was quite impressed with BYU and how they dealt with them.
Yeah. Baylor, do you know what? Baylor are a funny side, like you say. I don't trust Shappen. Like I say, they don't look very set at quarterback. He does not fill them with tons of confidence. I think Jaron Hall I'm much more confident if I had Jaron Hall in my room, like I say. And secondary, he's weak. That JT Woods and Jalen Petra have not been replaced. Like I say, they look very soft on the back end of Baylor. Like I say, BYU can go down the field, they can take shots, they can get the actives, the receivers going. They've got some weapons, and Baylor just made a poor job of stopping them. Like I say, it was close, got to overtime. I feel like BYU probably should have won more convincingly for how their play was.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought they should have won by a little bit more, but I'm impressed with this BYU team again. They didn't run. They're still missing Aligier. They really still are, but Baylor are a hard team to run on anyhow, so I don't know if that's too much of an indictment on the replacements who are there. They've got a big test this week, which we're going to talk about in the preview, so we'll talk about that again in a minute. So yeah, we both lost out on that one. Oregon State and Fresno State. I'm pretty sure you picked Oregon State for this one, didn't you? And they stole it at the death. I was traumatized with this one. I thought there was only 2 of us who went for Fresno State this week, and I thought they'd done it. But no, Oregon State nicked it right at the death of this game going forward to win 35 points to 32 on the road. Oregon State 2-0 on the season, looking pretty good, he says really quietly, because, you know, that could be a decent team this year. Fresno State moved to 1-1. Jay Kano was good, 29 of 45, 360 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Mims is still a really good running back. 21 carries, 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nico Remigio got 100 yards as well on 6 receptions for Fresno State. And then on the Oregon State side, Chance Nolan. Didn't really rely on him too much. 14 of 27, 219 yards and a touchdown. The running game was where they got it. Deshaun Fenwick had 102 yards, a touchdown on 19 carries on this one, and their defense kind of went ballistic as well. I think they had a score in this game. Very close.
Always been a chasm. It's shrunk a little bit. Like I say, Oregon are slowly in like a bit of a turnover period, whereas Oregon State are finding their feet. They're going to be a surprise dark horse in the Pac-12 this year, I feel like.
Yeah, I think they are as well. The way they're playing at this minute in time, you wouldn't put it past any of them to, you know, you won't put it past them to beat any team going there. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see what they do going forward. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with Oregon State. The one that fooled us all, I think only Matt picked this one, and that's because Matt, like, instinctively just puts his bets in these. Boston College blown out by Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech won 27-10. This is Virginia Tech who lost to Old Dominion the other week. And I think right now I'm calling the card on Phil Jurkovic. He's done. He is not a draft thing. He's not a draft prospect anymore. I'm absolutely done with him. 15 of 28, 135 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He lost 25 yards on 12 carries as well. Grant Wells barely did any better. 16 of 25, 140 yards and a touchdown. This is not one for the purists here, but the Hokies got it done. And I said last week, because this is at Virginia Tech, I said that atmosphere last year, it screwed over UNC because they went and beat them when they weren't particularly looking good. And I thought about this last week when making the picks. I thought, are Virginia Tech going to do it again? Are Boston College going to be able to go there and deal with the atmosphere? Well, answer was a big fat no. So, I mean, not much to say about this apart from Boston College suck.
Yep, BT are crap. Boston College are awful. Zay Flowers is just wasted. He's one of the higher thought of receivers going into the draft. He ain't doing no with Phil Jurkovic. The offensive line that BC have produced, NFL draft offensive line this year, struggling. Like I said, Jurkovic's getting pounded and he's also making bad options, and the defense is paper thin at best. Like I said, that is a head coach that is in trouble in Boston College because they're going nowhere quickly.
No, they look really bad this year. I thought they'd be better. Usually their offensive lines are good. They usually produce good guys there, and they're not doing it. And Jurkovic just does not look the same since he's back from his injury. So, yeah, we all lost on that one apart from Matt, who guessed, which really just infuriates me. USC beat Stanford 41-28. I guess we were both expecting that there. We wondered if Stanford could upset them, but apparently not. USC were really good in that one. The battle of potential future Detroit Lions quarterbacks: Will Levis v. Anthony Richardson, Kentucky and Florida. You bet Florida, I bet Kentucky. I came out on top on this one in a rare victory. Kentucky came out on top of this one 26-16. And I think it's fair to say that after all that hype about Anthony Richardson from week 1, he's now back to the neutral zone again because he was that bad this week that it's kind of leveled out the performance. He was 14 of 35 for 143 yards and 2 interceptions, and he ran 6 times for 4 yards. And Florida looked bad. Will Levis, on the other hand, I mean, it was not great. 13 of 24, 202 yards, a touchdown and an interception, so a little bit meh there, but Kentucky outfought Florida in this one, and yeah, the Anthony Richardson hype died very, very quickly.
I am actually cooler on both quarterbacks after the game. Not impressed by either. If anyone wants to go back and see Anthony Richardson throw two of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in a game, he tries to hit his running back out of the flat, and he tries to throw it through a linebacker in his face, and he gets it with one hand and just walks in for an interception. Absolutely dreadful. And then the second one, even worse, the second one was a game-ending, like I said, pick six. They were awful. But Will Levis actually filled me with no confidence either. There was one where he almost threw so many interceptions. There was one where he went for a receiver and it got tipped by his own receiver into a guy's hands. That came up really lucky. This Kentucky team, thank God that Chris Rodriguez is back, because they were just chugging along. They weren't doing that much. They were relying on the defense. Kentucky defense was fantastic. They were absolutely causing havoc all night. And yeah, Levis was average, but yeah, I'm yet to be proven with him.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't enamoured either, and I'm more towards Levis than Richardson at the minute, but yeah, a lot to be desired. Will Levis going to have to do a lot better than that to get my attention. Right, let's get down to the last few of these. Tennessee 34, Pittsburgh 27. I believe we both picked Tennessee here, but I tell you what, they did not get their own way in this game. Pittsburgh pushed them the entire game, and they actually looked quite impressive, and Keaton Slovis actually looked okay, and that's probably the biggest compliment I've ever given him in his life. I mean, you know, he had 195 yards, a touchdown, he did have a pick, he got hurt, I think, because the backup came in, Nick Patty. He was 9 of 20 for 79 yards and a touchdown. Israel Abanikanda's an underrated running back, 150 yards and a touchdown on the day. He shredded that Tennessee defense. And Hendon Hooker, I know you like Hendon, and I do as well, but I wasn't super impressed with him. He had 325 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I felt like he was overthrowing his receivers a lot. There were a lot of sort of deep downfield shots he took, and he just kept missing them by miles. Cedric Tillman, the receiver, he had 162 yards and a touchdown on 9 receptions, so a good day for him. But yeah, what did you make of this one?
This was a messy game. Like I said, is it? I can't remember how to pronounce it. Is it Abekinam, the running back, the young lad?
Abanikanda.
Yeah. He's very young. Like you say, he is quite experienced. So he has shone this year. Like I say, he's getting a good workload. Slovis, I don't know. It just never fills me with hope. And I know he got a knock and he had to miss the game. But yeah, but so far, Pitt are doing okay this year. To say they've had a big turnover and lost their 2 best players, they're hanging in games and they're managing to score points. But again, the defense it's shooting itself in the foot in times. Like I say, against West Virginia, at times that defense made a mess. But Savossier Dennis, another great game. They keep calling his name out week after week, the commentators. He is one of the more underrated outside linebackers going into this draft. Like I say, put his hand in the dirt, or he can stand up and play off the edge. But yeah, they're relying on guys like him very heavily. And yeah, Tennessee, Hendon Hooker is very highly thought of in the QB room going into next year. But he had one of those days where the arm was just like tense, or everything was under or overthrown. The receivers were working way too hard for what they got in receptions.
I feel like, you know, they did pressure him a lot. So I feel like you have to credit Pittsburgh maybe for that. But yeah, I noticed there were a lot of like easily missed passes out there. So like you say, he's got another year yet. So a lot of time to really sort of get himself fine-tuned and ready to go for the draft. And speaking of tunes, the biggest disappointment of this week, we both bet on Houston to take away Texas Tech. Texas Tech had quarterback injury worries and everything, and yet they won 33 points to 30. after 2 overtimes, another game that went to multiple overtimes, and Clayton Tune looked distinctly average. He was 266 yards, a touchdown and an interception. They got really nothing going in the run game whatsoever. I mean, Nathaniel Dell is Nathaniel Dell, 120 yards on 7 receptions. Nathaniel Dell's just amazing, but Texas Tech, Donovan Smith threw 3 picks. He got 351 yards and 2 touchdowns, but that's a lot of turnovers to not be able to capitalise and win a game on. The running game was okay. It went about 3.5 yards per carry. Nothing major, but, you know, I'm disappointed in Houston. I'm really disappointed in Houston for losing this one.
Yeah, bad loss. I think for 3 quarters, they were not even in the game. They were 27 down at the end of the third. I remember checking the scoreline thinking, oh yeah, they'll be fine. Looking at oh well, no, they've just totally gone to sleep and that made me look silly. In the end, we're even lucky to get to overtime. Texas Tech were bad. They were generous with the ball. They survived with a lucky win that I don't think in the end that they'll feel too good about it. It should have been a lot more comfortable. They were battering them for a half and totally shut down the Houston offense. And to get to overtime, they'll probably frustrate themselves. But yeah, Houston did not capitalize. 3 interceptions, did not turn them into enough points. Shouldn't even have got to overtime in the first place.
No, it shouldn't. And you said, great win for Texas Tech. They're somehow 2-0 on the year. So if they can do that when they're down to the second string QB, fair play to them. But that's a great result for them, knocking off Houston. And the last one for the week, which I don't really want to talk about, but I guess we have to talk about, the Battle of the Iowas. Iowa State 10, Iowa 7. Iowa at least scored a touchdown this week, but I mean, that's not exactly like a high bar really to want to get to, is it? There's something chronically wrong there, and you know, Laporta not going into the transfer portal is one of the most baffling decisions to me ever. His draft stock is getting killed there, but I mean, this was just another awful game.
Iowa State only had 3 points through, I think, 3 quarters. I think it was 7-3 to Iowa at the start of the fourth. I think it took one score to put away Iowa, and Iowa State mustered nothing for 3 quarters of the game. They were both dreadful. They both deserved to lose. Both crap. Like I said, Spencer Petras is currently, I will say now, he is the worst QB in the Big Ten. There is no one worse. There's not many worse QBs in the entire Power 5. He is as limp as a chariot wristband or as 3-day-old ramen. He's stale, he's limp, he's got weapons, but he just can't get anything going with them. I pray they move on from them at some point because they look so bad. And they've got such a good defense to keep them in games, and the offense just does not pull its weight. It's just not fair.
And I feel stupid because I bet on Iowa to win this because I thought, no, that defense is going to be able to drag them through a game. You know, it might just be able to give them enough time to at least have 1 or 2 good offensive drives. They conceded 10 points and they lost. I mean, I talk about smashing the other. You know, I don't know how they're 23-point favourites against Nevada this week. The spread is 38 points. 27 points in their first 2 games. That's both sides. There have been a literal combined 27 points in Iowa's first 2 games this season. I mean, teams have scored more than that in a quarter this year. That is just stinking, horribly rotten. And I don't want to have to talk about Iowa again this year.
It worked last year for Iowa.
Yeah.
Iowa didn't score many points because their defense was stingy, but then they were able to catch teams out. That's gone.
And they had a running back.
They had a running back, but he's gone. Tyler Goodson is gone. I'd like to say he was their main weapon. So the defense, bravo again. You still get all the plaudits this year because as much time as you're on the field, you hang out there. You're going to send more players to the draft. Iowa are just going to send more players to the draft. Riley Moss again, one of my favourite corners. Just a solid, stacked defense. I just wish the offense would pull its weight. At what point do you put the backup in? And I already know the backup is no better.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I've no idea what's going to go on with them. But yeah, for the week, you went 6-4. I went 5-5, and yeah, you overall are 12-8, and I am 8-12. So you have a 4-game lead on me going forward. And speaking of, that is going to move us into the week 3 preview, when we are going to preview our 10 pick watch games and maybe just pick out a few others that take our attention. So get your thinking hat on, Ryan. Need your suggestions for this one. So the first one, so week 3, some intriguing prospects coming up here. Florida State at Louisville on Friday night. Louisville favoured by 1 point somehow. So a little bit of background. Florida State started off the season quite strong, really. They've had wins over Duquesne and LSU with a heavy dose of good run game and an upturn in form from quarterback Travis Jones. I just want to say, no way, shape or form is that me endorsing him. He just has been better than last year. It was not a high bar to break. Defense is ranking in the teens in just about every discipline, led by Jared Verse on the edge. He's been bringing the heat on opposing quarterbacks, but they are facing a different quarterback prospect this year to compare to what they have faced so far. Louisville, now this is the definition of a hit and miss team this year. Blown out by Syracuse in week 1, which is an absolutely horrendous result for them. But then they went and took down the UCF Knights in week 2. Malik Cunningham has been awful against UCF. Florida State are going to have to game plan for him, because if you can stop him running, then Louisville become very bad very quickly. What are your thoughts on this one? Who are you having for this?
Florida State easily. I watched that game against UCF. UCF are trash. Louisville, they've got a running back for a quarterback in John Rice Plumlee. He is not good. He's terrible. Louisville should have won that game with one arm tied behind the back. Like I said, Malik Cunningham, I've lost more faith in him. He's a terrible passer. Like I said, he is not Lamar Jackson 2.0. He isn't half as good as Lamar Jackson. He isn't even quarter as good as Lamar Jackson. He cannot throw the ball to save his life. And I think Florida will continue. Jared Verse will be all over him like flies on shit. They will keep him in that pocket. And you take away him, they ain't got anything.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hate being this nice to Florida State all the time, but I'm taking them. I just don't have any faith in Louisville. And if I was like a bettor over there, I'd be putting down a mortgage on this game, especially as Florida State are outsiders. I'd be rich in a day. So yeah, don't let us down, Florida State. Next one. Now, I've kind of put this in as a trap game here, but it may not be a trap game. The Air Force Falcons at Wyoming. Air Force are favoured by 16 points, and they are the away team. So Air Force, they've started off hot. They've dropped 40 burgers in both their opening games against Colorado and Northern Iowa, and they've been very impressive running the ball. Out of all the service teams, they are probably the best at running the football at the minute. And when you allow them to play to their strengths, they're an incredibly difficult team to beat. Wyoming, I never thought I'd talk about this team again this season after that dismal showing they put up against Illinois in week 0. They were atrocious. But since then, things have got a little bit better for them. They had a very impressive overtime win against Tulsa. They dropped 40 on them there. They've had a routine win over Northern Colorado from the FCS as well. And that offense that looked really bad has finally come to life a little bit. And the defense is getting its act together as well. They've held up well against the run so far. And if you can hold up against the run against Air Force, you make them a very average team. So I don't think this 16-point spread is necessarily going to be covered in this one. And there is the possibility of an upset here, but what do you think, Ryan? Air Force, Wyoming, who are you taking?
Air Force. They're on a collision course for a title game, and Wyoming just happened to be in their way. Them and Hazik Daniels, they're going to run over them. That Wyoming strong run defense is going to be exploited. I think this one will be another comfortable win, because they're on a mission, Air Force, this year.
I like the pun there. Right, so yeah, I'm probably going to go Air Force as well, but I'm hoping someone trips up and takes on Wyoming there. I think maybe it could happen. The next one is also the second biggest spread on here. The Troy Trojans at Appalachian State. And I said we weren't finished talking about App State this one. App State 13-point favourites at home. But if you remember when we did the previews for the college season, I put a lot of emphasis on Troy's defence. You know, they've got one of the strongest on-paper defensive rosters in the entire FBS. I'm pretty sure it's top 10 in the entire FBS. So far, they have played against Ole Miss from the SEC. I think they lost 28 points to 10, but they did keep Ole Miss below 30. That is quite respectable against an SEC team like those. They dominated Alabama A&M in week 2. Gunnar Watson, the quarterback, he's fresh off the best game of his career. He had like 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he has thrown 3 picks over the first 2 games, so a little bit of good and bad there for him. Who knows what App State is going to show up. First week they had the epic with UNC, but they had 63 points dropped on them. The next week they took down the number 6 seed in the country in their own backyard and limited them to 7 offensive points. But are they going to be suffering a hangover from that win? For me, this game comes down to the Troy defense versus the App State offense. You know, this is a lot better than what UNC put out on the field. Can they keep Chase Bryce quiet? Can they keep Cameron Peoples from running the ball on them? If they can, then I think they've got a chance of shocking App State here. I mean, App State need to win this. They will want a shot at a Sun Belt title now that they've taken down Texas A&M, but can they knock down the walls of Troy? Ryan?
I think they can. I've seen them score heavily, and I've seen them buckle right up and be able to show up shop in a really hard win. It's going to come down to, is Cameron Peoples, one, is he healthy? He was not healthy at the end of that game last week. He did not look in good nick, even though they got over the line. So hopefully he's going to be 100%. And can that defense be a stingy? Like I say, they really buckled down and were really good in the red zone. But will they be able to repeat that a week again? I'm going to take App State, but it's only going to be by 3 or 4 points. This one is going to be a low scorer. It's going to be another tussle.
See, after the amount that I've praised Troy, I'm going to back the underdog. I'm going with the Troy Trojans. I think they can upset them. Like you say, App State are a fun team to watch, but they're fun because they'll win the games that you don't expect them to win, and they will lose the games you don't expect them to lose. And I think that this Troy defense could really, really cause them a lot of problems. So Ryan is going Appalachian State, and I am going Troy in our first deviation from one another. Now the games start getting very tough indeed. Penn State on the road at Auburn. Penn State 2.5 point favourites. Both teams come into this contest undefeated. Penn State knocked off dangerous Purdue side 35-32 in week 1, and then they thumped MAC side Ohio 46-10 last week. Their lethal new weapon at running back, the freshman Nick Singleton, who was in my all sleeper side for this year. I'm not going to be able to do it today because we're going over, but he's in there. This is one of my guys, Nick Singleton. He broke out against Ohio, 179 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 17 carries. But Penn State struggled running it against Purdue. This is a problem they've had last year in the Big Ten. They averaged just 3 yards per carry in the run game. So did they just beat up on a poor MAC side? Or is Singleton ready and primed to have a run at an SEC defense? Sean Clifford seems to have heeded the warning that Drew Aller's ready to step in should he disappoint. He's played well over 2 weeks, saved that absolutely god-awful pick he threw against Purdue, but he's been alright other than that. But this Auburn defense is only giving up 16 points a game, so he's going to need to be at his best because Drew Aller got playing time last week and he actually threw 2 touchdown passes. So he's ready to pounce when he slips up. Auburn have not been great so far. This is why they're underdogs at home. They wiped Mercer week 1, but that's FCS opposition. But they struggled to see off San Jose State last weekend just gone. They won 24-16, which is an 8-point margin of victory. They were 23.5 point favourites for that one, and they were barely able to put them away. The offense has not got going under TJ Finley. Over 2 games, he's 22 of 34, 279 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. 2 of those interceptions he threw were against Mercer, an FCS side. Tank Bigsby is obviously Tank Bigsby. He's got 220 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground already. He's one of the best running backs in the entirety of college football. The defense, like I say, is the star. 16 points per game they're only giving up, but again, opposition, you could claim, not the greatest in the world. I mean, this is a tough one for me. Penn State maybe should be favourites, but their run game has a habit of letting them down when it matters in the big game, and Sean Clifford also has a habit of letting them down when the game is pushed onto his arm. That said, Penn State defenses always really good, and they're coming up against a quarterback who is rank out of form. I mean, Tank Bigsby's really the catalyst here. You know, this is the opposite to what Penn State is. Clifford can't deal with the pressure if it's put on him. Tank Bigsby can deal with the pressure if it's put on him. There's been so many games he's had to bail his team out with his running, and he's actually done it. He has a track record of doing it. And if Penn State keep him quiet, they're probably going to win this. But I don't know, what do you see here? This is 2 pretty good defenses against 2 offenses that can struggle if you know where to hurt them.
TJ Finley. He's awful. How the hell did he get the Auburn gig? I'll never know. Because he won't go to LSU.
Yeah.
Like I say, he won't. It doesn't matter how bad Clifford can be, because Finley will be worse. I'm taking Penn State because Auburn don't have a quarterback. Tank Bigsby can do everything he wants, but Clifford just has to be average, and they can move the ball better. And this Penn State defense doesn't have to shut down Bigsby. Just keep him in check. Just keep him at like 400 yards a carry. Let him just chug away. Because TJ Finley ain't doing anything with the arm. That offense passing game is putrid. I said, TJ Finley's a bit better than Spencer Petras, and that's actually saying something right now. That's as much as I can say. So Clifford, who started the season okay, I think can capitalise on a team that is one-dimensional. Auburn is one-dimensional in offense, as they'll play all year.
Yeah. I'm inclined.
But I don't think it won't be a pretty game.
No,
it won't.
No.
It wasn't a pretty game last year. I remember it was an all-out run fest last year, and the defense came out on top.
I feel like this is going to be like one of those 24-17s or something like that. A pretty low scorer with one score. I mean, I don't like to bet against Tank, but I'm with you. I mean, you throw 2 picks against Mercer. What are you going to do against the Penn State defense, which is known for being dominating? And I mean, I know they struggled a little bit against Aidan O'Connell, but Aidan O'Connell is like light years above what TJ Finley is as a passer. He can actually, you could have a good day on defense and Aidan O'Connell can still rinse you. So, yeah, I don't see this happening either. I'm reluctant to bet against the Tank, but I'm going to take Penn State with you as well. This one I think we're going to be agreed on, because I don't agree with this whatsoever. BYU at Oregon. Oregon, 3.5 point favourites for this one in. I don't know how they are favourites for this one. Oregon come into this 1-1. They got brutalised week 1 by Georgia. They just had no answer to the raw power in that Bulldogs team. They went away and licked their wounds. They dropped a 70 burger on Eastern Washington. But for me, that tells me absolutely zip about this team. You can go and drop 170 on an FCS team. Tells you nothing. Facing BYU is going to be a huge test for them. So whereas Oregon have failed when tested, BYU, they've stood up to their challenges so far. They're a very physical side, and we've seen how Oregon deal with physical sides not well. BYU knocked off South Florida on the road in week 1. That was in horribly humid conditions. That's Florida right at the start of the season. That's not easy to go there and win games in that humidity. And then they knocked off Baylor in week 2 in overtime. Baylor are as physical as they come as a team here. So BYU have been tested a lot so far. They are still unbeaten. Jaron Hall's throwing pretty much exactly 260 yards per game. He's got three touchdowns, just 1 pick. He's actually got a receiving touchdown as well. He had a receiving touchdown against Baylor. BYU couldn't get the run game going against Baylor, but again, Baylor very physical. It's hard to get the run going on them. Jaron Hall stood up, put the team on his back, and won that game for them. So he is a really legit quarterback. I think Jaron Hall is going into this year. The defense, faced 2 good teams. They've not conceded more than 22 points so far, so they've done pretty well on pretty well on defence. Now, I've just put here, beware the betting line on this one. BYU play hard, they've had a tougher schedule than their opponents, and they look a lot better. The only thing that's keeping Oregon in this is usually when they lose a game and it's a bad loss, it's usually on the road. They are pretty good when it comes to their home fortunes, but I don't know, right? BYU, Oregon, who are we taking?
Bo Nix shits the bed every time he plays a good defence. He is gutless. BYU all the way.
Yeah, I'm the same. That was one of the easiest picks for me this week. BYU sweep. Do not trust Oregon one bit. You're going to have to earn my trust.
BYU, 2 years ago, swept the Pac-12 5-0. Like I said, they love playing the Pac-12.
Yeah. But I just think it's the physicality. You saw how Oregon could not deal with Georgia in the physicality of the game. BYU are exactly the same. The only thing that might save you is there's no Elijah there, but it remains to be seen whether the run game is going. But I am firmly confident in BYU for this one. So BYU sweep, no contest there. Mississippi State up next at LSU. Now, we've not really talked about Mississippi State so far this season. I know you mentioned Will Rogers very briefly on Wednesday, but a team that we've not really taken a look at. So they're coming into this Mississippi State. They're 2-0. They've had expected victories against Memphis and Arizona. But I mean, this offense is looking tasty under Will Rogers. So get this, 2 games, he's 77 of 98, 763 yards, 9 touchdowns and 1 interception. Right now he's on course for over 4,500 yards this season and just shy of 60 touchdowns. Over games 1 and 2, he's targeted 12 and 10 different targets respectively. So this is an offense that has a whole ton of weapons. When you've got 12 different guys targeted in a game, it's like, who the hell do you mark? The defense has been stingy. They absolutely mauled John DeLora last week at Arizona. They sacked him so many times and put so much pressure on him there. But LSU technically are still a step up in opposition from Memphis and Arizona. As for LSU, they've come up against higher quality opposition. They messed it up against Florida State. They screwed up a walk-off field goal, which would have got them the win, but they didn't look great in the game anyhow. And like Oregon, on week 2, they've gone and beaten up on FCS opposition. They won 65-17 against Southern Jaguars, but this tells you nothing going forward. Star wide receiver Keyshawn Butte has been quiet amongst rumours of unrest with the team. His stat lines for the first 2 games, 2 for 20, 5 for 42. No receiving touchdowns. I mean, technically this may be a tough one. This is Mississippi State, who look really good, but this is the biggest test so far. And LSU, who have looked poor, but they've had better opposition technically by this point. I mean, and you don't know how much the week 2 beatdowns help their confidence. So, Mississippi State at LSU, who you got?
Mississippi State about to drop a hammer on LSU. I think they're going to batter them. Jane Daniels still doesn't look good. Keyshawn Butte wants out. He will transfer. He will enter the portal before the season ends. I will put my life savings on it. He wants out already. He's not interested. QB room, they're not set. They don't have a trustworthy guy because I never agreed that Jaden was good enough for these big-time SEC matchups, and we're about to prove it. And Will Rogers, just an air raid offense, isn't it? Like I say, he just lives to put up big numbers, win or loss. So yeah, I reckon you're going to see 400-500 yards of offense dropped on this LSU D, and things are just going to get worse for the Tigers.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm going Mississippi State as well. I seem to be quite unanimous in our opinions this week, but I'm just the same. I think Mississippi State have shown they can be good against good teams last season. You know, you don't need to. They've not had the good opposition this year, but you saw last year that they can be great on their day. So I trust them to do it against LSU. I'm just not sure they've got it in them to do that. So, yeah, Mississippi State sweep. Now, this is a very interesting one. This is 2 great offenses against, well, one really bad defense and one which I'm not really sure about. SMU at Maryland. So Maryland are favoured by 2.5 points in this one. So Maryland are exactly the team they were last year. They are a sight to see when it comes to offense, and they are a potential disaster on defense. So they're coming into this game 2-0. They've got wins over Mac's side Buffalo and CUSA's side Charlotte. They've only given up 31 points, but get this, last week they lined up against a Charlotte offense, which is quite frankly one of the worst in the entire FBS. They are playing their third string quarterback right now due to injuries. I know the first stringer went out. The second stringer's injured now as well. They're playing the third string guy. They gave up 21 points to him. They had 0 takeaways, and they didn't register a sack till the last minute of the game. Now, if you're going to play like that against what is a putrid offense, what are you going to do when Tanner Mordecai and his SMU offense come to town? They are averaging 46.5 points per game so far. And Maryland have lost starting cornerback Tarheeb Still to a bad injury. He's one of their better players on defense there. The offense, it's a whole different story. They've put up 87 points through 2 games. Yes, it is picking on Mac and CUSA opposition, but we saw what they did against good sides last year, so we're kind of really confident that this offense under Taulia Tagovailoa is still really good. SMU are 2-0. They've beaten North Texas and Lamar, so you kind of got to wonder if the offensive production of 46.5 points is relevant compared to who they've played. But again, SMU just about ripped everybody apart last year, so again, you know this offense is good despite who they've played. The SMU defense given up 26 points over 2 games, but again, the opposition level ain't exactly high, so this is the biggest test for them so far. So it's going to be intriguing to see how they deal with Taulia Tagovailoa. Now, I think this is going to be high scoring. I think this is probably going to go past the 90-point mark. These are 2 very good offenses, and I've no idea which way this is going to swing. I don't trust Maryland's defense. I don't know about SMU's defense, but I know both offenses will put up points. SMU at Maryland, Rye, who you got?
See, this is hard because SMU last year, when they played good teams, they crumbled. They were not good against the best teams last season. Like, their offense.
But are Maryland good?
See, their offense is fantastic. In high-scoring games last year against good teams, SMU got undone. Like I said, where the premier offenses came to town, they did sometimes get outscored. And this is the kind of game where I kind of feel like this is one of those 55-45 kind of Maryland games. I'm taking Maryland in a 100-point shootout.
See, if you're conceding 21 points to a third-string Charlotte QB, I worry for what happens when Tanner Mordecai comes to town. I feel like it is going to be 50. I'm with you. This is going to be high scoring. I'm going to diverge and go SMU. The thing is, I don't know SMU's defense. I know Maryland's is bad. I know both teams have power offenses, so I kind of got to go against the team who I know whose defense is bad. So that may bite me, I don't know. But Ryan is going Maryland, I am going SMU. We'll get through these last ones because we have been going a while. Miami, Florida, the Hurricanes coming to Texas A&M. Texas A&M, 6.5-point favourites for this one. So, yeah. Right, so Miami, 100 points in 2 games they've put up so far, but it is against Bethune-Cookman and Southern Miss. Texas, they shut out Sam Houston 31-0 in week 1, and then of course we talked about it earlier, they lost to App State 17-14. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke is looking great. I mean, I know he's got to play a big team yet, but this Miami offense looks high-powered like we thought it was going to be under him. And Texas, as we saw last week, their offense lives back in the 1900s or whatever it was told about. Who have you got for this one, right? 6.5-point favourite, Texas A&M or Florida? Miami.
Miami, comfortably. Texas A&M, we're going to see that crappy offense again. Haynes King is not good. He's a poor quarterback. Like I said, Max Johnson is only a little bit better, but he's totally out of sync because he's yet to take a snap this season, so he's completely rusty. So, yeah, I think Miami are going to win comfortably. I don't know where you get 6.5 points from. That's weird.
You know, this is like the sort of fixture you overthink because you know that Texas A&M are bad. You know that the Hurricanes look a lot better this year, but it just feels like a game where Texas A&M are just going to go, screw you, I know we were awful last week, but then they're going to turn around and win inexplicably. Like, there's no rhyme, there's no reason to it. You just feel like they're going to put last week behind them and win. So it really conflicts me. I really want to say Miami, but then part of me is going, should I say Texas, just because it's Texas? And then when they lose and I look like an idiot next week, I'm like, what? Why didn't I listen to reason? Right, screw it. I'm going with the Hurricanes. So Hurricanes sweep here for me and Ryan. And we didn't say much nice about them last year, but they look a lot better. I don't trust Texas A&M, but I have a feeling we're going to get bitten by this one. 2 left. Vanderbilt, the Commodores, traveling to the Northern Illinois Huskies. Vandy, they beat Hawaii and Elon first up to go 2-0. Lost to the returning Sam Hartman and Wake Forest this week. Wake Forest, God, Sam Hartman did not look like he had missed a beat. Northern Illinois, they beat rivals Eastern Illinois, but then they lost a very close game to Tulsa in week 2. I think it was 38-35. It was very, very close there. Vanderbilt, 2.5-point favourites. Northern Illinois are max side at home, but you just don't know what you're going to get with Vanderbilt. I have been thinking about this one a lot, and I still don't know who I'm going to pick. But Ryan, Vanderbilt at Northern Illinois, who are you picking?
Vanderbilt in an ugly one. I think this one, I think they're going to need every one of that 2 or 3 point favourites, because this is going to be like a 1-point game. They're going to really make hard work of this.
I just don't. It's like, you'd think it'd be Vandy, but Northern Illinois, they're still MAC champions. No. I kind of need to put up some points against you here, but at the same time, I don't want to fall too far behind. I'm picking Vanderbilt as well. I do think Vanderbilt are just a little bit too good for Northern Illinois, but if we're wrong, I would not be surprised in the slightest. And then the very last one this week, fixture number 10, Michigan State at Washington. Now, you might think, why has he picked this one? But Washington are actually favoured by 2 points in this, and I believe the line has actually gone up to 3. So I think it's Washington are 3-point favourites here. Michigan State on the road. Obviously, Michigan State, decent start season, struggled to put away Western Michigan, but then they trounced over Akron at the weekend. Washington, I don't actually know what that's. I've spent a whole day prepping this, and Washington were the only team that I didn't get their fixtures up for so far. Washington, the Huskies, they have beaten Portland State 52-6 and Kent State 45-20. Still one of the middling teams in the Pac-12 here, and I'm surprised they are favourites here at Michigan State, but I mean, could Michigan State fall on a banana skin here? I know Jalen Berger's looking really good. I know he's not Kenneth Walker, but I think he had 3 touchdowns last week. He had some good yardage on there. Peyton Thorne's looked really bad so far for Michigan State. He's not been at the level he was last year, but they're grinding out the wins. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think of this one? Michigan State or Washington?
It feels like a trap game.
Yeah.
But then I think about, is it Windeman? Who's that edge?
Jacoby Windman, their defensive edge.
Yeah.
He leads the nation in sacks, tackles for loss, and pressures. He leads all 3 categories of everybody.
See, but I feel like Jalen Berger can probably run on the Washington defense. But is it, can Peyton Thorne complement him? I'm not sure. Washington are known for having a good secondary.
So one thing, Michael Penix has not been sacked this year. The Washington O-line has not given up a sack on Michael Penix Jr. So the O-line's been pretty decent. Now I know it's Kent State and an FCS team, but still, to not give up a sack after 2 weeks shows you've got something decent there. I mean, Washington are usually better on their defense, but
I'll take Michigan State then. I'd say this is the weekend the first sacks come. the floodgates are going to open.
I'm going to pick Michigan State as well, but it is a possible trap game there. So, I mean, we've actually been pretty consistent this week. I feel like it's the SMU Maryland and Troy and Appalachian State. I think they're the only ones we've verged on, so we'll see. I'm interested. Are there any other games this week that you just want to mention before we do the preview? Where are Arizona State this week?
Don't look these days.
Oh, do you not?
No.
Oh.
I'm losing interest. I'm just going to become a neutral.
Oh, they're playing Eastern Michigan this week, so you should win.
Yeah, they'll make hard work of that, I'm sure.
The next 3 games after that are Utah, USC, and Washington.
Woo.
Well, you might not have a head coach by the end. That could be good for you.
Oh no, Herm Edwards is going one way or another this year. He'll either walk or he'll be fired after the bad year.
Yeah. Oh dear. Alright, let's just have a quick look at some of the other ones this week. There was nothing else that really stood out to me. Where are the ranked teams? Georgia playing South Carolina. Spencer Rattler's going to get himself killed in that one. You know what? The one game I was going to think about putting on here was Oklahoma at Nebraska, but Nebraska can't upset Oklahoma, can they?
No.
No. I thought about putting it. There were a few that I thought about putting in for this one. I put Ole Miss are at Georgia Tech, UTSA playing the Longhorns, Pittsburgh and Western. Sorry, go on.
I've seen someone put UTSA and Texas on an upset watch.
Yeah, UTSA have not had a good start to this season. I feel like that's not great. I've been disappointed with them so far. Purdue and Syracuse. I actually looked at this. Syracuse are favoured over Purdue. That was weird. Like the line was only like 1, but
That's the Sean Tucker effect.
I thought about putting it in, but I'm just like, nah. There's no way that they can.
That's a running offense against a passing offense.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose it's the clash of styles there, really, isn't it? What you're getting with that. So, yeah. The other one I thought about putting is Kansas are playing Houston. Can the Jayhawks upset Houston? Do you reckon after that one, or is that just a step too far?
No, I think Houston right now, they'll be vulnerable. I think Kansas will like their chances going in. If they don't upset them, I think that'll be a game where there's going to be a considerable amount of points. I think Tune is going to have to be on his best behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see sort of an outside upset there. I mean, if Kansas won that, Jesus, they're making a run at the Big 12 title the way they're going. 3-0, 2 conference wins. You have to start paying them some real attention there. But of course, the big blockbuster this weekend, the one you have to watch, Nevada at Iowa. I just can't.
Yeah. Iowa will win, but in a low-scoring, crappy 14-11.
Just like the first 2 games, eh? Just like the first 2 games.
Their defense will absolutely slaughter and stifle Nevada. But can that offense actually pull its finger out and find its bollocks and do something?
Yeah, that is the big question. So yeah, there's some good games on this weekend, and this is the last weekend that Michigan play their scrub non-con schedule. So maybe we can start talking about them next week as well, because they're just playing scrubs at the minute. So hey ho. Anything else you want to mention this week before we get on out of here?
Don't think so. It's been pretty quiet news-wise.
Yeah, there's not a great deal. It's just the few of the injuries and Scott Frost going. I think it's going to heat up a lot this week. So, yeah, there's.
I think we've missed something in the chat about TV rights, or someone's mentioned about Texas and someone leaving the SEC.
Oh, have they?
TV offs. I think in the Discord.
Oh right. Oh damn. So, I'll have to.
I'm guessing something's happening. Maybe they're trying to leave early.
Oh, well, on that point, we can end on this thing. It's been going a while. Pac-12 possibly negotiating with Amazon. That got to be good for you, right? You can watch their games on Amazon going forward, and not have to mess around wait until 3 in the morning on the Pac-12 network or whatever it is.
No, like I said, I have Prime anyway, and Thursday Night Football. The coverage is pretty good, so I think it'll be good. I think it's the start of the conferences trying to leave TV and maybe going to streaming services. It wouldn't surprise me if someone's on like Hulu or Disney or things like that in the future. But yeah, it should be alright. It's not the most attractive football, but it makes it easy to watch. I can watch on the PlayStation, which would be good because I've got the Amazon Prime app. That is always a perk. The PS4 had NFL app, the Game Pass.
Yeah.
PS5 don't. It's
weird,
really
isn't
annoying.
It? Yeah, that is really weird. That is I don't get that one at all. So this one, so Oklahoma announces a home and home series with SMU, postpones series with Georgia and Tennessee amid future move to the SEC, and Georgia in response, now that they're not playing Oklahoma, have announced that they're going to play Ball State. Now that's a like for like. That is a like-for-like competition there, isn't it? Oh, we've not got Oklahoma, let's play Ball State. That's rubbish, that is. I don't know.
I hope they're compensating Ball State fairly for dropping 60 on them.
Oh, we did mention that, did we? So Marshall, App State, and I can't remember the other one now. There's 3 of them.
Got paid $5 million.
$5 million to beat their respective teams this week. So big payday for them and big victories as well. So yeah, thank you ever so much to everyone who's joined us this week on Twitch or on YouTube. I know it's been a long one as usual today, but Christ, that much goes on in college football at the minute that it can't be discussed in an hour, otherwise you'd be pushing through it all. So yeah, thank you for joining. We appreciate it as always. Just got to go through a few little bits of housekeeping to close. So our next episode, so tomorrow, Thursday the 15th of September, our main podcast is back. We are doing our preview show for the Washington Commodores this week. We have Maurice from DC Tweets. He is, if you've watched our show before, you'll have seen him on during the draft and everything. Maurice is a big Washington fan. He is an absolute great laugh to have on this show, and he will tell you everything you need to know about his team. So yeah, come and see the Washington preview show with in-depth analysis from Maurice from DC Tweets. Going to be great. Myself and Ryan are going to be back next week. We're going to be reviewing week 3 of the college football season, and we're going to preview week 4 as well. Going to be a lot of fun. Just remains for me to go through all our socials. So on YouTube, you can find us at Roar of the Lions UK, Twitch, Twitter and Instagram, ROTL_UK, Facebook, our page, Roar of the Lions UK, our group, Facebook group, Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide, and our website. You can find us www.roarofthelionsuk.com. Ryan, thank you ever so much for this evening as always. Thank you to everyone in the chat, Hatter's House, Ken Stauder, you've been from us from the start, really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it today. Chrome's been in, Det Fanman's been in, Macro Mike's been in, Kurt Steele has been in. Thank you to you all and to everyone who's been on Twitch as well. And until next week, just remains for me to say, One Pride.